we live yet?
Yes,
I don't see the participants up on the right.
there's 25.
34 now, but there they are. Okay, I got them. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the April 29th, 2021 remote public meeting of the City of Gloucester Zoning Board of Appeals. Consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 10 people, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation to the greatest extent possible. For the record, this is Zoom meeting 816-8969-6278. And in attendance from the Zoning Board of Appeals, myself, Joe Parisi, Catherine Schlichty, Peter Canal.
Oops.
Frozen, or is that just me?
Yeah, he's frozen.
Okay.
He'll be back.
You guys are too quiet. This is, you guys are just too quiet. You're too quiet. Catherine, what are you thinking about? Allison smiling goes, there she goes again. And he goes, now I have connection. Now I have connection that I have to listen to her. But again, you know what? I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough for everything you do. It's not easy in these times. And you know what? We're moving forward. There's so many things. You guys have not had a break. You know, everyone says, well, there's COVID. Everyone's building. Everyone's doing things. So, you know, you guys have not had a break, and I don't see it slowing down. So again, thank you. Thank you so much. And Greg, have you heard from Mr. Sambon? I told him he'd get off everything, enjoy life. I heard his surgery went well. So
yes, I did speak with him, and he's feeling good. Everything went off without a hitch.
So, and thank you, you know, for stepping in. And again, Allison, I mean, from here to licensing board that was supposed to go at 6, and here, I don't know how everyone does it, but I'm going to stay now out of mind, out of sight, and be quiet. I know Michael's laughing. She's never going to be quiet, but I am. But thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, where is he?
Must be having internet problems on Wheeler's Point there.
Well, I'm right down the street, so.
Same.
Does he want us to start without him? Oh, we can't. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, we can't because Michael can't vote. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I wasn't here on this first one. So Greg, are you going to speak on Bill's behalf on the Beachmont?
Yes,
That's planned?
yes.
Anything from Joe, Allison?
No, nothing.
I wonder if he even knows he's knocked off. He just keeps still talking.
Just for those in attendance, we are waiting for our chairman, Mr. Parisi. He's having a little connectivity problems.
Catherine, we have a couple of people asking questions. I don't know if we could cover them while we're waiting or,
Where are the questions show up? Oh, in the Q&A?
no, they're raising their hands.
Oh,
They're welcome. Do you want them to type them? That's not a bad idea.
yeah, there's a Q&A section at the bottom if people want to put questions in there. There
There
we
it is.
go.
Can you hear me?
We can,
Okay, you can see me?
again.
All right, I guess it crashed right as I began because I lost everything.
Right.
So I'm gonna begin again. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yep.
Sorry. Okay, I'm on my phone, so maybe a little
Last we
difficult.
heard was the meeting number.
Okay, so calling to order the Gloucester Zoning Board of Appeals, April 29, 2021. The meeting ID was 816-8969-6278. Our first petition was old business, the petition of Phyllis A. Sudby Estate seeking a variance 3.2 front yard setback to allow the applicant to sell the property. A conforming vacant lot is a buildable lot. Lot has planned for single-family home that requires variances to be constructed at 43 Farrington Avenue. This applicant is represented by Attorney Ellison. Is she, can we bring her in?
Good evening.
Good evening.
For the record, my name is Deborah Ellison, Ellison Law Office, 63 Middle Street, Gloucester. The applicant is Phyllis Sudby's estate, and it's the last piece of the property that is part of the estate that the children are seeking to sell as part of the distribution of that estate. David Sudby is on the call as a representative of the family. And the engineer on the project is Mill River Consulting. Dan Ottenheimer is also on the call. The architect is Jason Gove, and he is on the call. The property, as the chairman stated, is 43 Farrington Avenue, and we are seeking a 30-foot variance. The front yard setback is 40 feet, and the proposed setback is 10 feet. And if I might share my screen.
Certainly.
So you can see that the 10-foot setback goes to the property line. The pavement is actually another 10 feet or more past the property line. So the house is actually a little bit further back than just the 10 feet. There is an abutter who also asked a question about a culvert, and that culvert is shown as the dashed line, and you can see that it is within the setback. So the house is not over the culvert. The culvert is outside of where the house will be. The last time we were here, you asked that the applicant have elevations provided to you. And your concern was that there would be just a very large building looming over the street. And so they did have architectural plans prepared. And I think the architect has done a good job of creating a building that is both interesting and modest in size. And the site plan layout has not changed from what was presented earlier. You can see the middle part of the building is 2 stories. The 2 ends of the building are only 1 story. And the roofs slope back and into the sides, so that also limits the mass of the building from the street. There is a canopy that goes into, or a roof overhang that goes into the setback 3 feet. It does not require any further relief. And it's necessary to have that to protect people from the weather as they're going into the front door. But it also adds some interest to the property in the front of the house. And it brings the scale down by adding another area for the eye to settle on midway. So the house is very modest. It's 2,072 square feet. The garage is 23 feet by 21 feet. It has 3 bedrooms and 2 full baths and 1 half bath. The height is 26 feet 6 inches above the average grade. As you know, 30 feet is allowed in this district. And the hardship for this lot, as you may recall, is that there are significant wetlands on the lot that cover a majority of the lot. And this is the only place where the house can be placed outside of the wetlands. We went through the variance requirements in detail at the last hearing, and I'm happy to do that again if you would like me to. This is the rear and side elevations of the building and the layout. So if you have any questions, as I said, I'm happy to answer. Dan Ottenheimer is on the phone, as well as Mr. Gove.
Okay, does the board, anybody on the board have questions at this moment?
No, I don't.
Okay, seeing none, we will allow testimony. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the application? You please raise your hand. I can see nothing from this point, so somebody, Allison, you're gonna have to tell me. I'm trying to get back on the regular one.
I'm not seeing any raised hands.
No,
Okay. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application, please raise your hand.
I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Okay. Okay. All right, I'm gonna shut off my, I'm back, so I'm gonna shut off my phone. I hope I'm back.
we can hear you. We don't see you. There we go. But you're frozen again. Oh, no, your eyes blink.
Unmute.
He fooled you, Catherine. He's just moving really slow.
Is it? Am I there?
Yeah,
You just need to mute your phone.
Yeah, I gotta turn this thing off somehow. How's that?
good.
Damn phone's still on. They warned us about this.
I thought it was frozen again.
All right. Okay,
You got your stereo.
I know, I can't turn it off. Leave
Mr.
that.
Chairman, while you're figuring that out, can I ask a question of Attorney Ellison?
Yes, please.
Great. Attorney Ellison, so previous to tonight's continued hearing, there had been some opposition from John and Molly Burns. I'm just wondering if that opposition has now been withdrawn and things have been resolved, or what's going on with the Burns?
We have not heard anything further. I don't know if now that they've seen the house plans, they don't have an issue with it, but I have not heard anything further from them.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm going to ask one more time, just because I was offline. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition, so that we could recognize that and they'd have a chance. Anyone in opposition? If you're on a cell phone, which I see a couple, you press *9 to raise your hand. Okay, I see none. So we will close public testimony. There's no rebuttal. Discussion by the board.
Well, I just want to say, I know it was a little bit more work for the applicant, but it, to me, having a plan, having the house and seeing the scale of it does give me more comfort with the project. So just for, I say that for the applicant because I know sometimes it's a drag to have to do that, but it did really help me, so.
I agree, because without a structure, I think we were just given too much carte blanche. With this plan, which will be part of the record and part of the conditions, I'm leaning toward approving a variance for this building. And that if a new owner comes in and wants to build bigger, taller, different footprint, they will have to come back to modify the variance, in my opinion. So
Agreed.
with that, any other discussion, or are we ready for a motion?
I'm ready. I'm in agreement. I am comfortable. Well, I'm comfortable granting a variance on the plans presented at this meeting. But yes, I would agree, Joe. If there's any change for whoever the future owner is, they would certainly have to come back before us.
Yes,
So I am ready if you guys are.
go to it.
All right. So in the matter of the petition of Phyllis A. Sudbay Estate seeking a variance under section 3.2 of the Gloucester zoning ordinance for a front yard setback to allow the applicant to sell the property, a conforming vacant lot as a buildable lot at 43 Farrington Avenue. I would make a motion to approve the variance for the front yard setback. I do think that there is a substantial hardship on this lot. As Deb has said a couple times, there's significant wetlands area on the lot, and there's really no other place for a structure to be built. And so without the relief requested, it would just be an unbuildable lot and not really worth much to anyone. So I do think that the hardship, of course, does have to do with the topography, or not the topography, but the conditions on the lot. And I do not think that granting the variance would cause any substantial harm to the public good. And I also don't believe that it undercuts the Gloucester zoning ordinance. So I would move for approval of that variance.
Second.
Michael's not in this
All right.
one. Catherine, you second?
I second that motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded to grant a variance to 43 Farrington Avenue as submitted. Roll call vote.
Hey,
Mr.
Joe, just
Knapp,
a quick,
Yes,
just a quick comment before you vote.
yes, Michael.
I don't know I just don't know how you want to make sure and get that condition in there that you mentioned about this particular house and so on, just however that wording goes.
The plan of that house is going to be part of the record, will be stamped and signed as this part of the decision. So it would have to be built to that. And if they wanted to modify it, they would come back and ask us to modify the variance.
Gotcha.
So do we have to include that in our motion? Isn't that just, that's
That's
for
standard.
every applicant, right?
Right, that's standard because we had asked for the plans to be. part
Gotcha.
of it. So-
Okay.
Although Deb, you could mention, it could be mentioned in the decision, any change in the structure would require a modification of the variance.
If that's the pleasure of the board, I certainly could do that.
Yeah, because what we don't want is somebody buys the lot, comes back next year and says, well, nobody told me, that we couldn't build whatever we wanted. So,
Yeah, I think it's to everyone's benefit to have it
Yeah.
very clear on the record.
okay, thank you.
Agreed.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes, in favor.
Ms. Schlichty,
Yes,
Ms. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Parisi.
Yes. They've heard our decision favorable. Greg, I'd ask that you stamp those plans and sign them on behalf of the board.
Yes,
And if Attorney Ellison would create a draft, we'd much appreciate it.
I will. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And
Good luck.
now on new business, moving on, the petition of Juan Eugene Del Rio and Sarah Castle Del Rio seeking to appeal the issuance of a building permit 21-35 at 9 Beachmont Avenue. I believe they're represented by Attorney Heaney. He's to be brought in.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, for the record, I will be recusing myself on this application.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Attorney Heaney could raise his hand because I'm not seeing him.
There he is, he's at the top.
There he is.
There we go.
Good evening,
Haney?
Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Yes, good evening. We also have Jennifer DiCarlo from my firm that's going to be presenting as well. Would it be possible to bring her in?
Sure.
Thank you.
There she is.
Thank you.
Okay, you can begin.
Thank you. I get a little panic attack when my screen goes dark because I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to get it back. So my name is Bill Heaney and Jen DiCarlo in my firm. We're here representing Gene and Sarah Del Rio tonight. They're the trustees of the Castle Del Rio Family Trust.
Could we get an address, please?
Yeah.
Their address is 9
Yeah,
Crowell
just
Ave-
yours.
oh, my address, 86 Dodge Street in Beverly, Mass.
Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you. So we are here tonight to appeal the building permit that was issued for 9 Beachmont. I think it might be easier if I could bring up my screen now and show you an overhead. Would that be possible?
Sure.
It may need a little bit of technical support. Is that up for you to view?
Not yet.
No.
There you go.
Yeah.
So if
Okay.
this is, thank you. This is a satellite picture of Beachmont Ave and of Crowell Ave. So if you'll see where the red pin is, that's my client's home. And they abut 6 Beachmont, which is this home right here. The lot that is in question here tonight is 9 Beachmont, and that's this grassy area here. On the plan, it extends from about here down into the woods and then over to here. This is, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, is Stage Fork Park, a very popular place in Gloucester. So I want to point out that the grass area here, what we can see on this Google map, appears to be mostly lawn space bordered by the wooded area. And as we get here tonight, our appeal was filed on March 26, and Attorney Frontiero has submitted a rebuttal. And I think it'll be most advantageous for the board if we start out by discussing what we actually agree upon. So
Let's,
what we agree upon.
let me, excuse me. I know you all submitted papers and you rebutted each other, but we're not hearing this on email. This is, you're presenting your case against the building inspector's decision. That's what we want to hear. And then we will listen to the building inspector defend his position. At that point, we will allow testimony to be given by others. Attorney Frontiero may be one of those people that chooses to testify. And then after all the people have been opposed, you will be allowed rebuttal. But we're not hearing all your back and forth legal correspondence. That's not how this was going to work. And I'd like you to present your case for why the building inspector should be overturned.
Certainly. So what we can agree upon with this is at the start of the process, there were some height calculation issues that were incorrect. And throughout the process, and since we filed our appeal, I believe that the height calculations have been corrected. So those were just recently submitted to us. So for tonight's appeal, I would like to represent to the board that we believe they are correct. But we just like to reserve the future rights if it is not built according to the plans, if it is indeed ever built. So discussing 6 Beachmont and 9 Beachmont, and as the building inspector looked at them, they are in the residential zone 20, and they are both non-conforming lots by today's zoning standards. Both lots are less than 20,000 square feet, and this R20 zone requires 20,000 square feet to be a buildable lot. 9 Beachmont and 6 Beachmont have been in common ownership numerous times during the early 1900s, the 1990s, and as recently as 2008. In fact, in the late 90s, I believe it was the late Mayor William Rafter that owned both these lots with his wife. Jen and I do like reviewing the title documents, and we can spend a lot of time talking about the deeds and the common ownership, but it is detailed in our appeal that was submitted to you. So I would encourage the board, if there's any question as to whether these lots were held in common ownership, we can review our written submission. But I don't think anybody is going to contradict or argue the position that at several times these lots were owned by the same owners. So I would like to move on and discuss our issues or how we see this building permit being appealed. So for starters, I'd like to talk about the derelict fee statute. So the derelict fee statute is 183, section 58, and it is well settled. And I believe we can all agree that what the derelict fee statute holds is that real estate that abuts private ways or paper streets, public or private, hold the fee interest to the center line of the way. So that is going to be crucial tonight as we talk about the building inspector's decision. And I think it's fair that we can all say that the derelict fee statute is pretty straightforward. So I would like to share the plan now so we can talk about the derelict fee statute. For the record, it's plan number 207 of 1945. Is that plan up for you?
Yep.
So on our plan here that we're looking at, you can see Beachmont Ave here in the middle. Lot A is 6 Beachmont Ave. Lot B is 9 Beachmont Ave, the subject property of the building permit. These are the lot lines as described in the deeds for the two lots, lots A and lots B. Beachmont Ave is a private way that rolls down between the two lots. If you recall from the satellite photo I just showed you, this is mostly lawn area, and this is the lawn area that I was referring to. If we apply the derelict fee statute to these two lots, they both own to the center line of the private way. So lot B has the fee right in this area here. Lot A has the fee right in this area here to the center line. They share the same line. So if we're going to apply the ownership of these lots, if you look over here at the Bray estate, there's a line here. Nobody would argue that these two lots abut. They share a line. Lot A and Lot B are very similar or the same as this line. There is a line down the center line, and they own to the center line, and therefore they abut. So that is the approach that we're taking, is that these lots do abut. They have the fee to the center line, and there's nothing in between them but that one line. So that's the approach of the derelict fee, or applying the derelict fee. From a practical standpoint, if we were to visit the property and have a look at what's going on at the property, we will see this is what you would see. So this is the front of 6 Beachmont,
Hold on, we're not seeing anything yet.
and down in here is 9 Beachmont. We have
Mhm.
solid lawn. Are
We're
you
not seeing
seeing?
anything yet.
Oh, sorry.
Is anybody else seeing it?
No, gray screen.
I just seen a
Sharing-
grass area. That's all I see, Chairman.
You getting something? I've got nothing. I got the blank screen.
Let me-
There it is.
There it is. So this is the front of 6 Beachmont, as you're looking at it from 9 Beachmont. It's solid lawn, no roadway was ever built, no paths, no obstructions. This is a different angle of it. Did that one come up?
Not yet. It's a little computer's
Sorry.
very slow. Now it is.
Sorry, a little lag time here. So again, this is 6. This is the subject property, which now if you go out and visit it, you'll see they've actually dug the foundation. So it does look a little bit different now. But on the plan that I was showing you, the private way would continue down right through this area. So from a practical approach, when you view these lots, they are contiguous. There's no break in them. From a legal standpoint, there's no break in them because the derelict fee statute determines who owns what. And the fee in the paper street is clear that they own it to the center line. In addition to the practical appearance and the application of the derelict fee statute, there is also numerous cases since the 1990s where these lots have been marketed on MLS as one lot. So over the history, the owners of this lot have actually, of these 2 lots, have actually considered them to be one lot and attempted to sell them together on MLS. Those details were also outlined in our appeal and are there if we want to review them. But I also would like to point out that it doesn't seem to be contradicted. Nobody's arguing those points. So we have the derelict fee statute, which I think we can agree upon. And the next application we have is the merger doctrine. So the merger doctrine is Massachusetts General Laws 48, Section 6. And it is well settled that adjacent lots in common ownership will normally be treated as a single lot for zoning purposes to minimize nonconformities. So we have 2 nonconforming lots. And if we build a second house on them, we're going to increase the nonconformities because the house that's being proposed for 9 Beachmont is on an undersized lot. It's only 17,000 square feet. It needs to be 20,000 square feet. So we do have common ownership, which nobody's contradicted. And if we apply the derelict fee statute, we have abutting lots. So what we don't agree upon with the building inspector, or what we're making assumptions based on the building inspector's granting of this building permit, is how the derelict fee statute relates to the merger doctrine. So it's our position that the derelict fee statute does relate to the merger doctrine in deciding who owns what to determine whether they're abutting. Attorney Frontiero has pointed out that the Sears case makes the derelict fee statute not apply to our current situation. We feel that is simply incorrect. The Sears case simply states that the derelict fee statute cannot be used in the context
I
of
think
determining
you're
dimensional
talking-
compliance.
Excuse me. You're rebutting something that hasn't been said yet. So
We,
I'm not sure where you're going.
if you give me 1 second, hopefully I can clear it up for you, Mr. Chairman.
No, you're discussing things that haven't been put before us yet.
Well, we have 2 lots that abut. We have the merger doctrine. Now, there are exceptions to the merger doctrine. The only way the building inspector could issue this building permit would be if he found that 9 Beachmont was somehow an exception to the merger doctrine. So it is our belief, and we don't have the building inspector's notes or why he issued this permit, but it's our belief that he must have deemed these not to be abutting lots, which would be a mistake because the derelict fee statute is clear. Both these parties own to the center line. So the building inspector clearly could not be making the position that these do not abut. Just can't do that. So our next assumption would be that the building inspector, in order to issue this permit, would have to find in some way that these two abutting lots are an exception to the Massachusetts General Laws 48, Section 6, and that somehow there's a barrier between the lots that rises to the level that creates an interruption. Again, Mr. Parisi, we're working on a lot of assumptions because we don't have the building inspector's notes or positions on the matter. We see a building permit that gets issued and we have to appeal it. So I'm trying to show you how I believe the derelict fee statute applies to these two lots and how then the application of the merger doctrine would apply to these two lots. Now, there is a very recent case in the land court by Judge Rubin that I think is very similar and very helpful in this case. And now I would like to turn it over to Jen DiCarlo from my office, and Jen will discuss how the Rubin case and this Beachmont issue, or how the Beachmont issue we can learn from the Rubin case. So if Jen, if I could turn it over to you now.
I'd like to ask you a question first.
Oh, sure.
So in Gloucester, probably about 65% of the roads are private ways. Are you telling me that anyone that owns a lot across the street on all those private ways doesn't really own that as a separate lot?
If they're in common ownership, no, they don't own them as a separate lot.
Really?
Because they own the fee to the center line.
So we're talking about affecting hundreds of properties.
I don't know the hundreds of properties in Gloucester.
Pardon me?
I don't know the hundreds of lots in Gloucester that you're referring to, but I can tell you in this particular case, if you take the derelict fee statute, it is very clear that the property owners own the fee to the center line.
I understand
These two
that, but
properties
that
own it to
also
the center
applies,
line and they're abutting.
and that applies to all private roads, you're saying, in Gloucester.
Yes, and paper streets.
And so many, you're right, so many people that own both sides of the roads and plan to build, you're telling us that that's not going to be allowed to happen because of this derelict fee situation?
I am telling you, if you apply the derelict fee, that yes, those lots abut. Now, there are other ways for them to be buildable. They might be conforming lots. These just
No,
happen to be
no,
two
none of them
smaller
are.
lots.
Okay, I just wanted to hear that.
Bill, can I just ask you, if there were houses beyond number 9 and Beauport kept going, would you hold the same position that they would merge even if the road cut through them?
My position is a little tricky on that one. So if my clients, if I needed to hold that argument, I would have to be arguing against Judge Rubin in the case that Jen DiCarlo is going to discuss. In the case that's about to be discussed with you, I would tell you that reading that case law, if there were houses in a real road there, then that would be a significant barrier that would divide these two lots, and therefore they would not have merged. So I think that answers your question. I think you may have read the case law, and that's the distinction that Attorney DiCarlo is going to make with you, is that, yes, there are exceptions. You need to have a barrier. The courts refer to a barrier all the time. In this particular instance, there's a lawn. It's contiguous. There is zero barrier.
The city of Gloucester doesn't have rights to Beauport to use it if they wanted to open it up or anything. I don't know if you know that, but.
Not that I'm aware of. I do believe that there is some private right-of-ways that were in deeds granted previously to other homes on Beachmont, but those are just to pass and repass over, and I believe they've just been used for foot traffic. I think maybe some of the people that live in the area will be discussing that further with you.
Thank you.
Any more questions for me, Mr. Chairman?
Nope.
If I could, I'd like to turn it over to Attorney Jen DiCarlo.
Sure. You need to take your screen down.
Thank you.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much. My name is Jennifer DiCarlo, and I am here also on behalf of the Del Rios. I am an associate with Heaney and Associates, and I just wanted to carry on where Attorney Heaney left off. And I think actually I'd like to also address Mr. Parisi's question, if I may. I think you've hit on the thing that makes this case distinct from other cases where we have properties on opposite sides of ways, where we have maybe a roadway that carries through. This is very distinct from those situations because the two properties are located at the terminus of Beachmont Avenue. It's a dead end. But not only are they located at the dead end, there's a substantial portion of Beachmont Avenue which is unimproved, as Attorney Heaney indicated, and it's grass. And we would potentially have a different situation if, let's just say, Beachmont Ave carried through to Stage Fort Park, and neighbors could pass and repass all the way into Stage Fort Park. But these properties are at the end, and there is absolutely no practical reason for the neighbors to access that portion of Beachmont Ave. And the reason for that, and I'm going to try to share my screen, is because it's simply impassable. So let me.
So I guess we're saying that, or you're saying, that the people at the end of a dead-end street on both sides of the roads have less rights than the people one house in.
Yeah, yes, I am saying that.
You're saying that, okay.
I am
just
saying
wanted
that.
to be
And
clear.
the reason I'm saying that is, first of all, we need to think about, I think number one, we need to think about what the merger doctrine seeks to accomplish. We can't forget that, right? The merger doctrine was established because if someone owns a non-conforming lot and then they own other abutting lot that they can use to reduce the non-conformities, they should. That's what the law requires. And these lots were held in common ownership throughout history again and again and again. They weren't, at one point held in common ownership, separated. There was an increase in lot area and they've been separate ever since. That's often the case we see, and that would provide them with some level of grandfather protection. In this case, they've again and again been merged. And so as a result, by owning that abutting property that abuts because of the derelict fee statute, they have reduced the non-conforming nature of their property. Now, this is a common issue. It comes up in the land court all the time, the application of the derelict fee statute to determine that lots abut. But the land court's a practical court, right? It'll look at what's happening on the ground to determine whether it makes sense to apply this merger doctrine, whether these are really adjacent lots. And so if you read the cases, you'll see that the court always looks to what's actually happening on the ground. And in particular, it talks about when lots appear at the end of a right of way, whether or not there is a significant enough interruption, whether sometimes the derelict fee statute also applies when there are waterways that separate lots. And if the waterway is significant enough, then that will stop the merger. But the reality is that our legal system has, even at the highest level, at the Supreme Court, has acknowledged that the merger doctrine, which is a common law doctrine codified in Chapter 48, Section 6, it's here to stay. It's good law. And so in this case, we need to look at what's actually happening on the ground. And if we only look at, for instance, we have number 6 and number 9. Well, we're going to think, okay, those are two, they must be on opposite sides of the street. If we look at the plan that Attorney Heaney had shown, we see two lots, A and B, on opposite sides of a way or street. But when we actually get on the ground and we look, we see that these properties have been used contiguously. They have maintained lawn together. And we also can see, and honestly, I have to see if are you seeing a photo at all?
Nope.
Okay, so let me see if I can show you this photo. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not very good at this. I think I'm reaching the age where technology is no longer my thing. Do you see an image at this point?
Yeah, your Outlook.
It's not actually my outline, but but what you're seeing here is an image with a rock wall at the end of it.
No, what I'm telling you is we're seeing your Outlook menu, not the picture.
Okay, I apologize. Bear with me for 1 minute. Stop the share. And let's see here. And I'm hoping that this is
Now we're seeing a picture.
perfect. Okay, thank you. I appreciate your patience with me. And I'm not gonna lie, that's probably not gonna be the first time I mess up. What you're seeing is Beachmont Avenue, where the driveway for number 6 ends and the grass begins. And you can see a rock wall at the very end. You can see bramble. Of course, you can see the, I guess, bulldozer or excavator on the right. So you're seeing a completely impassable area on Beachmont Avenue. And that really is critical to the analysis here of whether or not others have rights to access that area in Beachmont Avenue to get to some other location.
It's a dead end.
It's a dead end, absolutely. But it's not just a dead end, it's a dead end that isn't improved all the way to the end. And this is really distinct from, and I don't know if you had an opportunity to read it, but Judge Rubin's case. Now, in that case, we were talking about Harbor Way in Bourne, and the judge actually said that the right-of-way in question, Harbor Way, the rights of others to access Harbor Way would sufficiently interrupt the merger. It would disrupt the merger or create a physical barrier to merger so that those two lots were kept separate. Now, let me just see if I can stop sharing that. And I'm going to try to share another image. Let me see here if I can do this. Can you see a map?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Bear with me. Thank you. Let me see if I can do this. Screen one. I apologize. Ah, there we go. Okay. Now can you see a map?
Yep.
Or plan? Okay. So this may seem irrelevant because we're looking at the GIS for Bourne, Massachusetts, but we're looking at the property in that Rubin case, if you ever have an opportunity to read it, which was about 10 Harbor Way. And you can see that Harbor Way was a continuous, basically a loop with Lighthouse Lane and Westview Street. Very different scenario from Beachmont Avenue. Other individuals, other property owners, visitors, they could access Harbor Way to get to the beach, to get to Lighthouse Lane, basically to travel around. Totally different scenario. So the point here is that this really requires a factual analysis. You need to look at what's actually happening on the ground to determine whether this truly separates the two lots. And if, looking at the images, you see the lawn area, there is nothing separating those lots. Another piece of information that came to us was that neighbors in getting to Stage Fort Park, they actually don't use Beachmont Avenue. They cut across 9 Beachmont Avenue. They actually cut through the property, don't go over the right of way to access a footpath to get down because the bramble is so dense and there's a rock wall. And I believe the topography is fairly steep. You can't even cross over it. So for all intents and purposes, these two properties truly are together. And they have been represented as lots together for a significant amount of time. I'm trying to share with you an image that shows the listing history on the multiple listing service. And these properties have been sold together, marketed together multiple times over the years. So the property owner of 9 Beachmont is hard pressed to now say these were not together. They clearly were. It may feel like they're being deprived of rights because it looks like 2 lots on either side, but the reality is the property owners over the years have enjoyed the use of these 2 lots together. Both lots are non-conforming. They're both undersized. And because of that, the undeveloped lot, just developed with lawn, it reduces that non-conformity. So it's performing exactly as the merger law seeks to have it perform. I think our memo touches on the common ownership, so you should be able to get a sense of that. I do think it's important to just to see how these 2 lots practically have been used together. I don't know why it was overlooked or what the rationale was for the building inspector to determine that there wasn't a merger, but the default rule is merger. And you need to then find the exception to the merger. So like I said, there would have to be a physical barrier. There would have to be something that breaks up that continuity, and it simply isn't there. The end of the improved portion of the way is actually the driveway for number 6. It's not even, it's just an extension of the driveway into the way. So it's not traveled by any other neighbors. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, you do realize the city plows that road all the way onto that lawn.
Well, then they're actually plowing private property because they're plowing.
The city plows a lot of private roads, and
do.
they plow that one too.
Respectfully, I would just say that the city plowing or the city improving, I mean, I think that's at their, you know, it's at their risk. If it's a private way, first of all, there's no reason for them to do that. Although I certainly wouldn't want to see the owners on Beachmont have suffer in any way for lack of plowing or maintenance. But the fact that the city plows, I would say that that has no effect on the merger status.
And they plow your client's road too, which is a private way.
Yeah, and that happens in many cities. There are those types of
Okay.
arrangements.
Okay, are you done?
I think so, unless anybody else has any other questions for me. I know our clients are here and they do live in the neighborhood. I think they can speak to the on the ground conditions the best. So I would hope that they could have an opportunity to speak.
When we go to public testimony.
Thank you.
Well, before we go on to the building inspector, I have one question though about you. What is your client's reason for appealing this? Are they just concerned about the integrity of the zoning ordinance, or were they worried about their view?
Well, I think they'll be able to speak to that. I think certainly view is always an issue with any development in Gloucester. But I do think
Not
that,
unless there's a height exception being requested. View is not an issue.
well, I understand that. I think that this lot has historically not been developed. I think it's already in, Gloucester is kind of notorious for sort of increased density anyway. So I think that they certainly don't want to see the density increase in this very important area.
Okay, any other questions by the board members?
Good for now.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Greg Cefalo, who, from the building department, who will testify defending the issuance of the permit.
I'm Greg Cefalo. I work at the building department, Free Pond Road, Gloucester. I'm here on behalf of our department, and the position that our department has taken is that Beachmont Avenue is a laid out way, whether private or public. It's laid out. The lots on either side, their frontage runs parallel with that laid out way. Though they may have rights to the center of the road, their lots are clearly defined by the edge of Beachmont Avenue. And to us, that constituted the barrier between lots, which would make them non-contiguous, though in common ownership. That zoning district was R10 and was changed to the R20 zoning district. So you may find more undersized lots than you would expect for an R20 district, but it's a densely populated little neighborhood. So that's our position. The road is laid out. Everything follows the layout of the road. The road constitutes the barrier between lots. And that's where we stand.
Thank you, Greg. Any questions of Greg by the board? We'll take testimony. Anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in favor of the appeal, please raise your hand. First up is Sarah. We could bring her in, please. And I remind everyone, we need your name and address for the record before you begin your presentation. And you have to unmute yourself. Sarah? Sarah?
Yes, hi, this is Gene Del Rio, and I'm the resident and homeowner at 9 Crowell Ave. And the reason for our appeal of this project is because we feel that this is a non-conforming lot. We looked into the property in 2017 and we're told that any building there would need a variance. So we are concerned about the size and scope of this project and its validity as a project. The reason we're appealing is really to get to the bottom of this. We feel that the project has a big impact on the neighborhood in terms of the view, the sight lines. And so anyway, this is our case. And we believe that it should be reversed, that the permit should be reversed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all for your service.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the appeal? So Sarah, that was the same people? I
Yes,
see Gene Del Rio is up next. Is that the same person?
Yeah, I am Gene.
and this is Sarah. We're having computer issues, so we're both on the same
Okay,
computer. And I can just attest to the fact that that area is impassable. And when we looked at that lot a couple of years ago to purchase either the house, the adjacent lot, or the two together, it was never thought that there was a road going through separating the two lots. We never saw any indication of that. It would have been a negative buying either the lot or the house to think that that was a public way coming right through. You know, what would your lot would be? I can't imagine anybody in the street parking their car on that paper road, quote unquote. So that is just my feeling, that it just seems impassable, and that, as Jean mentioned, the scale of the project is basically what comes down to a 4-car garage, 8 bedrooms. I know it says 6, but it's technically 8 when you look at the floor plan house in that under, non-conforming lot. Thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, who was speaking?
That was Mrs. Del Rio.
Sarah Del Rio.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the appeal? Seeing none. People wishing to speak against the appeal. Sal Frontiero, we bring him in.
Just unmuting myself and may start my video here.
There we go.
Good evening, Sal Frontiero, 46 Middle Street, Gloucester. I represent Jacqueline Enslow, Matthew Enslow, and Warren Pearson as the owners of 9 Beachmont Avenue, also the permit holders in this situation. They got a permit for a 2-family home on this site. As to the issues raised, this case, the case of the Sears case from the appeals court, I want to emphasize that's an appeals court case, and you don't need to be a lawyer to know that an appeals court case takes precedent over a land court case. So the appeals court would carry the day. In that case, and it makes no difference that it was a different type of zoning situation specifically, but in that case, there was a lot that was 4,800 square feet, and they needed 5,000. And if you included the portion of the lot that was owned, or if you included the portion of the way, I should say, to the center that the lot abutted, it would make it over 5,000 square feet. And the building inspector said, no, you can't count that. And it was appealed to the ZBA and then appealed to the appeals court. And just I want to point out some important issues that that case raised. First of all, it said that the derelict fee statute is, as a zoning statute, is inconsistent. The text of it is inconsistent with it being a zoning statute. Basically, what it said is that it applies to fee interest in ways, water courses, fences, and monuments. The court said, look, you can't build a house on a fence or a monument or a waterway. So basically, the court said plainly the interest to which the statute applies does not include the right to build. And they upheld the building inspector, the zoning board of appeals, saying, no, you can't add that land to the middle of the way to your lot size. Secondly, the court said that any interpretation that would allow it to be added on conflicts with the underlying purpose of the statute. As to that, the court said that the statute is designed to clarify ownership of sort of derelict areas where it's unclear who owns it without this statute. Okay, so it involves enforcement of property rights, again, not zoning. Also, the Sears court, the case said that applying the derelict fee statute as a zoning tool with a law of merger applying would lead to basically odd results, dysfunctional results, they said. If you look at this case, what would happen here? You would end up with a lot that was merged together. And where's your frontage? So you're making it less zoning compliant frontage wise. So your frontage would in essence be the width of Beachmont Ave. And so you're basically saying you're swapping out a lot size compliance for a frontage non-compliance. So that's basically the issue, saying you're going from complying on frontage to not complying. There's no way that's the intent of the statute. Most importantly on that case, again, basically it said, and this is a quote, and this is in the last paragraph of the case. In sum, we hold that the derelict fee statute does not require, excuse me, I lost my point there, does not require a town to include the fee interest covered by the statute when calculating the lot area. So the town is not required to do it, and I would submit that the town cannot do it. And this case is not directly on point to the actual issue of lots across the street, but there are some land court cases that do address it. Curiously enough, the case cited by Mr. Heaney, the case of Judge Rubin that was cited in Bourne, in that case, they found no merger. They said that the private way sufficiently interrupts combined ownership of the lots at issue. And you will notice that was conspicuously absent from their filing was any case whatsoever that found that lots on the opposite side of a paper street or a built street merge for any way, shape, or form. They cited not one case because there are no cases that say that. And also the land court cases say that a way need not be in existence on the ground in order to sort of interrupt merger. In the case of Johnson v. Casper that I cited, Judge Sand found that a paper street separating two lots, the fact that the paper street was shown on a plan was enough to interrupt the ownership to prevent any kind of merger. And also the definition of lot in Gloucester, if we look at that, also supports the fact that the derelict fee statute, that the merger doctrine does not apply in this situation. Section 3.1.8 defines a lot as an area of land, all of which is in the same ownership with definite boundaries ascertainable by a recorded plan or deed. So if we interpret the confines of the lot in accordance with this description, the confines of the lot are shown on a plan, and the lot is described, the confines of a lot are described in a deed. The city of Gloucester looks within the four corners of those documents, not to the derelict fee statute, to interpret the size of a lot. So basically, the definition of lot in our city also flies in the face of the petitioner's interpretation of this statute. Also, Massachusetts law states that anybody who abuts a paper street absent intent otherwise in the title documents has the right to improve and use the entire length of the way. So if your house abuts is on the corner of Western Ave and Beachmont, you can use and improve the entire length of that way all the way to Stage Fort Park. I visited the property and I walked the paths. Basically, the paths are used by residents there. They're used all the time. I looked at every deed. Every deed says abuts Beachmont Ave. That gives them rights in Beachmont Ave. And when you get out there, you'll see there are two paths. There is one behind sort of the center of 9 Beachmont, where there will be a house if this building permit is upheld, and the other one is behind 6 Beachmont. How do you get to those? There's 2 ways to get to those: completely trespass on 6 and 9, or walk all the way to the well, either way you have to trespass actually. But the point is, if either of these property owners put up no trespass signs, you only have one way to get there. That's straight down Beachmont Ave to the end. And basically, many people use that area to access Stage Fort Park. If you go to Crowell Ave, you'll see that there's a defined path at the end of it. At the end of the road they live on, there's a defined path that goes down to Stage Fort Park. As a matter of fact, the paths behind, I walked them, the paths behind 9 Beachmont hook up to that same trail. So there's plenty of trails there, and there are plenty of people who access it using the end of that way. They talk about the lots were sold together. It's irrelevant. So whether somebody sells a lot together, what's relevant is when it was laid out and what the grantor said when it was originally laid out on a plan, and there was nothing. It was silent. It's silent there. It didn't limit anybody's rights and ways. It doesn't matter what the subsequent owners intended, or it doesn't matter that they marketed the lots together. It doesn't matter what somebody's belief is as to whether you need variances or whether they merge. None of that is relevant. It's very clear here that you have people who have rights in a way, and those rights are used all the way to the end of the way. It makes no difference that it's at the end of the way, none whatsoever. Matter of fact, I think it's a more significant interruption with the fact that at the end of the way is not a private residence, it's a public park. People frequently use it. If you found that the derelict fee statute applied here, and again, not one case, not one, shows that it does. And again, the city of Gloucester, even if it did, has the right to not apply that here, because they're not required to include the strips of land in the street in their as part of their zoning or lot size calculations, and that would apply to merger as well. But you would end up with basically a lot with a right of way running right through the middle of it, with frontage that is equal to the width of Beachmont Ave, and you couldn't build a house right in the middle of it. Right in the middle of your building envelope is a right of way that people have legal rights to that they use. And if either of these property owners decide, and I'm sure the owners of 9 probably would, because it would go through their yard, if either of them decided to stop people from accessing their lots, they would have only one choice, and that's to go right through the middle. I don't care if there's brambles, I don't care what is there. There are paths there in the very same area. There's no reason a path couldn't be constructed right at the end of Beachmont. So others clearly have rights in this way. There was an email submitted earlier, I'm not sure if you looked at it, by a neighbor that talked about that. People who've lived there for years have used it. Members of the general public have used it. It is absolutely nonsensical to say that the merger doctrine applies in a derelict fee statute situation. It does not. The appeals court case, which takes precedent over the land court cases, was absolutely crystal clear about it. And I want to reiterate, there was not one case cited that showed that the merger doctrine applies in the derelict fee statute situation with lots across the road, because it simply does not. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to the appeal? Okay, seeing none, I'll allow rebuttal by Attorney Haney.
Thank you. I'll just start addressing a couple of Attorney Frontiero's claims. And as well as he speaks confidently and clearly and confidently, he's not in control of the facts of these cases. The main thing that he is confusing, and please don't let this confuse the board. The Sears case, yes, it's an appeals court case, but if you even read the quote that Attorney Frontiero quoted to you, it's clearly only talking about determining the size of the lot. What's not at issue here tonight is the size of the lot. This is a 17,000 square foot plus or minus non-conforming lot. Nobody is arguing that they can use the paper street to increase their square footage. It is not on point. The Sears case is not on point for the issue in front of this board. The issue in front of this board is, do these lots abut? And the answer is yes. Due to the derelict fee statute, they own to the center line. They share a common borderline. If the paper street, as the building inspector and Attorney Frontiero have argued, automatically divides these lots, then Judge Rubin would not have taken all the time to review all the facts and circumstances down in Bourne. If you read Judge Rubin's case and the Sears case, and they're both very short, you will see two very distinct issues. The derelict fee statute brings it to the center line and you have abutting lots. If Attorney Frontiero's argument carried the day, Judge Rubin wouldn't have been writing a ruling on that case at all, because those were clearly on a street that was built out. What matters is if that street becomes a physical barrier. And that's the point that Attorney DiCarlo was trying to point out to the board, that there really is no physical barrier here. And if Attorney Frontiero thinks that he can walk through down that private way and get to Stage Ford Park, I'd really like to watch it, because that's some pretty thick bush down there. And I don't think anybody's gone through there in years. So I just want everybody to keep the issue very focused and don't get distracted by the Sears case. I agree with the Sears case. I think it's great case law. The Sears case you guys should be using all the time, because you're going to have homeowners that come in and say, no, my lot's really bigger, or it's going to affect the dimensions. The Sears case is only on the dimensional aspects of zoning. It does not speak to ownership or fee. The derelict fee statute speaks to fee. So that's the big distinction here. And I believe Attorney Frontiero is kind of taking you down the wrong path, no pun intended. But the Sears case, it's on point, but not on point on our issue. Our issue is who owns these lots and if they abut. The other thing that Attorney Frontiero misspoke about was when applying the merger doctrine, he actually stated, I believe, that control has nothing to do with it. And if he really wants to rely upon appeals court cases, he needs nothing more than to look at the Serena case, which states a landowner will not be permitted to create a dimensional nonconformity if he could have used his adjoining land to avoid or diminish the nonconformity. So control is very, very important when you're applying the merger doctrine. And at numerous times since 1900, the common ownership people, including the former Mayor Rafferty and the people that owned it in 2008, could have merged these lots, and therefore they should have merged it, because the whole goal in any zoning ordinance in any city or any bylaw in any town is to reduce nonconformities. So in this case, not only are you allowing a nonconforming lot to have a property built, it's a very, very big property that they're building. If this was deemed to be a non-conforming lot by the building inspector, the applicants could have come before the board to apply for a variance, just like Attorney Ellison's client did before, and a suitable structure, maybe a little bit more palatable for the neighbors, could have been built. That's not the path that was chosen here. They applied for a building permit, which doesn't really allow for any neighborly input or any oversight. It's a non-conforming lot that's going to have a very big two-family home on it. It did merge with lot 6 Beechmont and 9 Beechmont merged. They share a common line. They've been in common ownership, and there are 0 barriers between them. We showed you the pictures. It's a lawn that stretches between the two. It's the same grass. It's the same height. So I would just encourage the board to focus on the issue at hand. Don't get led astray by the Sears case, because Attorney Frontiero is right. It is really good case law. And yes, it's an appeals court case, but it's not on point for what we're discussing here tonight. Nobody here is saying that lot 6 or lot 9 should have different dimensional requirements based on the derelict fee statute. What we are saying is, based on the derelict fee statute, they abut. And when they abut, the merger doctrine kicked in and they merged. So I'm happy to answer any other questions. I would implore the board to read our appeal, read the 2 cases. I think we have a very intelligent board, and I think you'll see the distinctions. And if you just follow Judge Rubin's lead, I'm not smarter than Judge Rubin. I don't think anybody on this Zoom call is going to claim to know more about the law than Judge Rubin. And if you follow Judge Rubin's lead, you'll come to the right decision on this one. So with that, I really do want to thank you for your time. I feel like I come in front of this board with some very tricky issues, and I appreciate the fact that you take the time to hear us out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Discussion by the board.
Well, a very interesting application. I just first want to say thank you to both the attorneys for the applicant and the opposition. I think your briefs were excellent, all of them. And I think it's a pretty tricky, issue. For me, it comes down to a lot that, we do see merger a lot to try to cure zoning deficiencies on lot size. And, but we also, if the owner of 6 and 9 Beaumont came to us and said, we're going to knock the house down and we're going to put one big house across the middle of the lot, I don't think we'd let them build over that right away. I don't think we'd let them build over Beaumont Avenue. We would say, you can't build over Beaumont Avenue. Other people have rights in that road. We don't know who has rights. I don't think it's been made clear to us. Does the city of Gloucester have a right to Beaumont Avenue? We don't know. There's been some testimony that neighbors use it to access Stageport Park. So, well, I can see the argument that, everybody owns the middle of the road, therefore your lots abut, therefore there's merger. In my mind, the lots are as described in their deeds. I know there's a derelict fee statute that says you own to the middle of the way because nobody wants land to be unowned. So I think that's the main purpose of the derelict fee statute. And I'm just, and I'm not wild about the idea of merging the lots and creating a 25-foot frontage on a lot either, actually. So these are my kind of hesitations with, overturning the building inspector's decision on this. So I just, that's my 2 cents on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not an attorney. I wouldn't pretend to be an attorney. So, but my inclinations are similar to Catherine's. I think both presentations were good, articulate. I think I honestly don't, I don't know would be what I would honestly say. And so my inclination would be to side with the building inspector. And ultimately, if Attorney Heaney and his clients, feel strong enough, then I think you're going to have to take it beyond at least me, on the board. I don't think the case has been made strong enough to me to overturn the building inspector's decision.
Right, because the building inspector was saying that that road was the barrier. That's what created the barrier.
Yep,
so
that's what he said.
Right. So, I mean, if they're going to go with that, then I mean, that kind of debunks the whole argument, I thought, right? Because the language is specifying there needs to be some type of barrier, whether, I don't know if it's a fence or markers. I'm not sure. I don't know what what they really need. But if the city and the building department is saying that the road that leads that way is considered a barrier, I mean, I think they make a good argument there. So I guess that would be an argument in itself, whether the road is or is not the barrier, right? Or
I think that's the argument. Yep.
I would, like I say, I'm not a lawyer either, so I wasn't listening, wanting to hear Supreme Court case before us because we're not in position to decide that. I always like to go back to common sense. These were clearly a street laid out with lots on both sides of the road. They were in an R10 district for a long time and were legitimate lots. Zoning changed to R20. I don't think when that happened, there was no intent of chapter 40A to penalize people when zoning changes. Obviously, that's why people in non-conforming lots have greater rights than people on conforming lots. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's the law and we follow it every day. So it looks like a lot. It is a lot. You know, Beechmont clearly goes right up to the Stage Fort Park boundary. And I don't care what brambles are on the other side. I can step over the boundary and be in Stage Fort Park. I don't have to be at the gazebo. I only have to have access to Stage Fort Park. Whether I want to traverse through the dog park or whatever else to get there, that's my business. But it is access to Stage Fort Park, and that road doesn't end because at one time, Bill Rafter decided to pave his driveway out to the middle of the road. So I believe I'm supporting the building department. I think there clearly is a lot, and we shouldn't be creating this hardship on somebody just trying to develop property. I don't follow why the people, I know why the people opposed, because they thought it was much taller. And so their original appeal focused on the height and the measuring of the height and whether it was calculated from the 4 corners or the 16 corners and everything else. And as soon as that got cleared up with the true calculations for everybody and, got the information out there, now we're going to argue about, let's make it, we don't want a house there for some reason. So let's find any legal way we can to try to make that argument. And I just don't buy it. So I'm in support of the building department too. Anyone else? Any discussion on the board?
Ready for a motion?
I am. Now, in this case, so there's an appeal. The motion would be, has to be positive to support the appeal. And if you don't support the appeal, you'd vote no.
Okay.
So everybody's clear on that.
On the petition of Juan Eugene Del Rio and Sarah Castle Del Rio seeking to appeal the issuance of building permit 21-35 at 9 Beechmont Avenue, I would move approval of the petition.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion to approve the appeal.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call vote.
Mr. Nyman,
So I'm opposed.
You vote no.
That's a no vote.
That's correct. I'm voting against the appeal. In support of the building inspector, yes.
Ms. Schlichty,
No.
Mr. Canavo,
No.
Mr. Parisi.
I also vote no. You've heard our decision. We have denied the appeal of the building inspector's issuing of the building permit, and that will continue. Thank you all. We'll draft a written statement of our decision for the record, and that will be available at some point. Okay. Next case is the, for the record, I just wanted everyone, I should have said this up front, if anyone's here for 652 Essex Avenue. That case was advertised incorrectly, didn't include all the aspects, so it had to be re-advertised and moved to the May 13th date hearing. I'm sorry, I should have announced that earlier, but I just, as I read down to it, I saw it. So we will not be hearing that tonight. That is rescheduled to May 13th. Our next application is the petition of Manning and Margarita Curtis, seeking a special permit under 1.9 to alter and expand the structure to allow full renovation to the existing home with new gambrel roof, second floor reconfigured, existing doors and windows replaced at 3 Fort Hill Avenue. And I believe they are represented by Craig Herman. We could bring Craig in. Craig out there? There he is.
Here I am. Good evening, everybody. My name is Craig Herman. I am a resident at 10 Highland Street in Gloucester, Massachusetts. So yes, the Curtises are hoping to renovate their existing dwelling. They're moving back from where they're living now in New Orleans, but they've owned the property. The family owned the property for a number of years. They've owned it still. And over time, to move back, they're hoping to be spending more time with their extended family. Therefore, doing a full gut renovation of the house, taking everything down except for the existing masonry walls that are there, and putting on a second floor that allows the 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. We're hoping to expand out over the front patio and also using the same lot coverage plus a couple more feet in the back in order to make the second floor a little bit more usable. And we're creating that gambrel roof to hopefully fit nicely with the context in the neighborhood. And the biggest issue with this property is that the whole thing exists within the setbacks. So the actual buildable lot area is smaller than the footprint of the house, and they're not even in the buildable lot area. So we're just altering and expanding a little bit for lot coverage, but everything else is meeting all of the zoning requirements, and the fact that we're within the setbacks is where we're looking for a special permit to do the renovation. If you'd like me to share my screen, I could show you the drawings if that's necessary.
No, I think we all have the drawings
Yeah.
in our packet. Nice looking design. So all the stone is staying, the granite?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's cool.
So
So when
you
you
really,
said the setbacks, you're on the lot completely, correct? You're just
Yes.
within all the setbacks, okay.
Yep.
Any
And that's
questions?
that's documented on the cover sheet. We get a
Yep.
2 feet on the side, which is also a front because it's on the corner lot.
Right. Any other questions by anybody?
I just want to be sure I'm clear, Mr. So Craig, the footprint of the bottom is pretty much staying the same. The top's going to overhang the existing structure. But I'm not sure what's happening in the back. Is that like a stone patio back there or?
Yeah, so when you look at the, if you're looking at the last sheet, EVA 4,
Yeah,
you'll see in the image number 9,
yeah,
okay? So my understanding is that stairs are considered part of the structure. So we're considering that area as the expansion of the second floor out the back, which you can see in perspective view 3, number 5.
yeah.
So when you look at number 9, you could see that the grade is it's probably about a foot or so from the windowsill, which puts it 2 feet above the floor grade, the floor level.
Okay, yeah.
So they're hoping to build a small patio area and have the second floor expand out the back and then work their way up into the backyard in order to have some outdoor living space.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions by the board at this time? Okay, we'll take testimony by the public. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the application, please raise your hand. Anyone in favor? If you're on your phone, I'll remind you, dial *9 to raise your hand on your phone. I see we have a few phone people. Anyone in favor? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience would wish to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone in opposition, please raise your hand. I'm seeing none, Allison. You don't see anything? Okay. We'll close the public hearing. There'll be no need for any rebuttal. There was no testimony given. Discussion by the board, or are we ready for a motion? Adria?
I'm ready if you guys are. Okay, so in the matter of the petition of Manning and Margarita Curtis seeking a special permit under section 1.9 of the Gloucester zoning ordinance to alter and expand a structure or a non-conforming structure to allow for the full renovation of the existing home with a new gambrel roof, second floor reconfigured, existing doors and windows replaced at 3 Fort Hill Avenue. I would move approval of the special permit. I do think that it is an increase in the nonconformity that already exists there. However, I do not think it is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. I think that it won't affect the traffic flow and safety. There's someone already living there and they'll continue to do so. The adequacy of the utilities and public services, I don't believe will be affected as they'll use what is currently there. I do think it fits in with the neighborhood character and the social structure. I think the proposed building, I think it's a nice structure. I think that the plans and the elevations look nice. I think it's going to be a good project. I do not think it will negatively affect the qualities of the natural environment. And there will probably be a slight fiscal impact or fiscal increase to the city, which is always good. And so, yes, I would vote in favor of this special permit.
Motion made. We need a second. Michael?
I'll second.
The motion made and seconded to approve the special permit at 3 Fort Hill Avenue. Roll call vote.
Ms. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Ms. Schlichty,
Yes, I think it's nice, a nice project.
Mr. Parisi.
I also vote yes. Greg, you've heard our decisions favorable. I would ask Greg if he would stamp and sign those plans on behalf of the board. That'll be
Yes.
the permit, and we will draft a decision and get it to you as soon as possible.
All
Thank you.
right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, good luck.
Who wants to write it? I'll take care of it.
Thank you, Joe. I have 2 that I still have to write. Sorry, Allison.
Okay, our next hearing is the petition of Doug Kells seeking a special permit under 5.3, the home occupation, to allow a small personalized bakery at 4 Warner Street. They're represented by themselves, I believe. We could bring in Doug, I think, will be speaking. Yes, there he is. Doug, you have to unmute yourself and give us your name and address for the record.
Yes, there we go. I don't know why my name is Doug Kiles. I am at 4 Warner Street in Gloucester, Mass.
Okay. Can you tell us about what you like to do?
Yes, we would like to have an authorized small personalized bakery to make cakes and loaves and pies for the general public, ordered only on the internet to be picked up. And most of our business is done on the four major holidays: Christmas, Easter, Mother's Day, and Thanksgiving and Valentine's Day. And other than that, we do custom cakes and the like. And so we're requesting a permit to do so in our house. We've been approved by the Board of Health. We have stainless steel everything, hoods, access, all those things that we're supposed to have.
Okay, and so to be clear for everybody, so it's a home occupancy permit. And there are limitations on that with regard to outdoor. However, you're asking, I believe, for permission with this home occupancy to maintain this pickup storage unit on the front porch and a sign for the business, I believe.
Correct.
I read everything correctly.
Yes.
Okay, great. Just want to be clear for everybody. So is that similar to the one that's on the porch now? Same
Yes.
type of thing?
Yes. Yes. It's
Okay.
the same size. I just didn't want to change it until you guys said yes.
No,
It's just-
that's right. Good job. Good.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to add?
We've been doing it for a while and it's terrific and people seem to appreciate what we're doing and we're not causing problems and our neighbors all approve. So we just want to continue doing what we're doing.
And we do a lot of good stuff for the open door. So.
Yeah, a lot of charity stuff too.
Thank you.
Need to have her state her name if she's going to speak.
I'm sorry.
No, sorry, Lori Lufkin, 4 Warner Street, Gloucester.
You get that?
I didn't. but
Okay.
according to-
We'll ask for any questions at this point, or we'll take some testimony. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the application, please raise your hand. Anyone in favor? I see John Chiquato. We can bring him in.
Hello,
Yes, John. Name and address, please.
my name is John DeCordo. I live at a 114 Prospect Street, around the corner from the proposed project. And I see no problems with this. And indeed, I see this as an advantage for the community, great business. I'm a consumer myself.
Great, thank you for coming forward. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in favor? Please raise your hand. If you're on the phone, it's *9. Anyone in favor? Seeing none. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Anyone in the audience in opposition, please raise your hand. Again, I see none. Any discussion by the board, or would like to go right to a motion?
So it looks like it's favorable from the neighborhood, just from the quietness of the neighborhood. Any concern, and I'm going to vote in favor. I think I just want to express concerns about possible growth, that sort of thing. Do we have any control, or do we sort of just set this thing in motion? And you understand what I'm going? If they're good, and it sounds like they are good, and if they're profitable, right, and they want to expand the business, how does a home occupation control that from being something that it shouldn't be? That's really the nature of my question.
The home occupation statute does have limitations on amount of space that can be used, and there could only ever be one employee that's not the family. So there are some basic safety measures in there, which I think would keep it kind of what it is. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
I'm only one woman. I can only bake so much.
All right, enough from
Yeah,
you.
I'm not my mother.
If this was an in-person meeting, we would have expected pies or something.
We would have brought them for sure.
Oh, don't ever do that. Adria, a motion?
Yes. So in the matter of the petition of Doug, I'm gonna butcher this name, I apologize.
Kyles, like Smiles.
Petition of Doug Kyles seeking a special permit under section 5.3 of the Gloucester zoning ordinance for a home occupation to allow a small personalized bakery at 4 Warner Street. I would make a motion in favor of this special permit. It appears that they already have the permitting from the Board of Health. And they've been doing it, and they're just trying to kind of upgrade things. I think this is fantastic. As long as we are keeping with the requirements under section 5.3, all 7 criteria, I don't see a problem, and I would vote in favor.
Thank you. Motion made.
Second.
Seconded by Michael. Roll call vote.
Ms. Schlichty,
Yes, I will give testament to how good Laurie's baking is.
Ms. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Mr. Parisi.
I also vote yes. We've heard our decisions favorable. Greg, although there are a few
Right.
documents that could be stamped and signed to be part of this decision. I appreciate that on our behalf. And I will take care of the decision.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, our
Thank
next
you.
applicant,
Thank you.
and this one, Adria is recusing herself from this one, I
Yes.
believe,
Thank
Edgemont.
you.
Petition of Sarah Green seeking a variance to allow replacement of an existing 6-foot fence with a new 8-foot fence at 24 Edgemore Road. And I believe they're representing themselves. Sarah Green. She out there? Do we see Sarah Green anywhere? Oh, there we go. No, there she is.
Good. Okay, hi,
Hello, name and address, please, for the record.
Sarah Green, 24 Edgemore Road.
Okay. Go ahead.
I wish to, when we bought the home, there was a 6-foot fence in the back of the property, which blew down in a windstorm. And during the same time, there's been a new house, gone in on that lot behind us. And given the elevation of our house and their house, we really need an 8-foot fence to give us both privacy. Our neighbor is in favor of this as well. We both agree that good fences make good neighbors. And I've spoken to all the abutters. Everyone is in favor, and 2 people have written letters, which are in the packet, in support of this. So it's just replacing the fence where it exactly was with one 2 feet higher.
Okay, questions. I have, my only question is, so where are you concerned about visual, from your home?
Yes, from the back where we sit on our deck quite a bit, and actually the whole back of the house, the bedroom, our master bedroom upstairs, the kitchen downstairs, and the deck in the back where we spend a lot of time in the good weather, looks straight down on the back of their house, and there's quite a direct line of sight. Sort of, they have an nice open, glass door. They've got a swimming pool. It's lovely, and we like them immensely. But we just feel that this way there'll be less impact on all of us in the whole neighborhood. If we
My impression was that's your garage kind of building.
That is that is a little garage down there, which is currently using.
That seemed to block a big chunk of the house. And
And
then when I walked down back to the boundary, they've planted a line of arborvitaes the entire length of the property that are going to be blocking everything.
Yes, and probably, I agree with you, and I wish they grew faster, but I think it'll be about 10 years before they actually block it.
Surprised, but
If you were on my deck or in my kitchen, you would see it's quite a direct, open view.
I realize that. It's just also like 150 feet away. Okay. Anybody else have any questions on it?
Yeah, I think for me, and I'm in support of the fence only because the owner, Ms. Green, is in support of it, and her neighbor, who's mostly impacted. If that neighbor, with the pool and so on, was opposed to it, that would be a no-brainer for me. I would say no. But if they both think that an 8-foot fence is going to help them gain the privacy that they're after, I have no issue with it at all.
All righty. All right, we'll go to public testimony, see if anybody else does. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application for the variance? Anyone in favor? Please raise your hand. you're on your phone, it's *9. I see no one. Anyone in opposition to the variance for the fence? Please raise your hand. Anyone in opposition? I see none. In that case, I think we move to a motion.
On the petition of, where am I? On the petition of Sarah Green seeking a 2-foot variance to allow the replacement of an existing 6-foot fence with a new 8-foot fence at 24 Edgemore Road. I agree with Michael. I don't, if both neighbors feel like this is giving them the privacy and the best use of their property, I don't think it's, you know, going to adversely impact the neighborhood, and I'm voting I would move approval of the variance.
Motion made, second.
Second.
Second by Michael. Before we vote, I had one question for Greg. Greg, an 8-foot fence, we've heard discussion in the past, requires more scrutiny for structure. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, so they'll have to submit to you plans that show.
Yeah, they'll submit them to building department and Jim Butler. Or Bill will take a look at them.
Okay, I just want to make that clear to them that there are special requirements when you do go above the 6-foot.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call vote.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Ms. Schlichty,
Yes.
Mr. Parisi.
Yes. Heard our decision's favorable. Greg, if you could stamp those for us and sign them, and
Yes.
we will get a decision written and out as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Green.
Thank you.
I'll write that one, Mr. Chair.
Catherine, was that you? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. You were starting to lean over there a minute ago.
I heard
All
she was
right,
putting
let's
the
keep-
chain link fence up.
Let's keep moving then.
Yeah.
Our next applicant is the petition of Deborah Castellucci seeking a variance. Variances for front yard, side yard, rear yard, lot area, lot frontage to allow the combination of 3 lots into 2 new lots with existing single-family dwelling on 1 lot, conversion of existing garage into dwelling on other lot at 7, 8, and 8 rear Lanton Lane. I believe they're represented by Attorney Favazza.
Good evening. Let me grab my PowerPoint here.
You want to weigh in on that Beachmont Ave case?
Yeah, we can meet up at the Franklin after. I'll tell you all about it. But right, focus elsewhere. So if I can share my screen, we'll be in better shape instead of looking at me. All right. Hopefully we can see what I got going on here. For the record,
There we go.
my name is Joel Favazza. I'm an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, with an address of 123 Main Street here in Gloucester. I'm here tonight on behalf of Deborah A. Castellucci. She is the owner of 788R Lantern Lane, obviously also in Gloucester. We're trying to combine 3 lots into 2 lots and convert an existing garage to a single-family dwelling. By way of quick background, Deborah has owned the property since 1993, and that's when she purchased it from her parents. They've owned the property since 1965. Her adult son, John, is looking to move back home and raise his family where he grew up, you know, without kicking mom out of her own house. And so what he's trying to do is convert that garage in the property to a single-family home. By way of technical background, we are in the R20 district. And as I'll discuss in a moment, this is very much what I would call an R10 neighborhood, but we'll get to that in a moment. There are currently 3 separate lots for a total of just over 31,000 square feet of lot area. The house is a pre-existing non-conforming structure. The garage is a pre-existing non-conforming structure. They have different setback requirements because the garage currently is an accessory structure and would be going to a principal structure if we are successful tonight. As a result of the reconfiguration, one of the 2 lots needs relief as a lot. And both structures would need relief because although they are currently pre-existing non-conforming structures, when you start redrawing lot lines, you're creating new lots and the structures lose what we kind of refer to informally as grandfathered status. So here are all the variances we need. And it looks like a lot, but I want to emphasize that it's just to keep the buildings where they are, to move some lot lines around to make them make a little more sense, and to allow for the conversion of the garage into a single family dwelling unit. Lot 2, which is at the lower end of this plan, where the garage is, would require 5 variances. Lot 1, which would be on the upper side, would only require 1 variance for a front yard setback. As you can see, the existing house is close to the layout of Lantern Lane. Here, as always, are the plans zoomed in. In case you have any questions, we can always come back to these. One thing I want to note at the outset is that on the floor plan, you see what's marked in dashed lines as future stair. Tonight, I'm telling you that those are being removed from the plan. There were discussions with the neighbors about the proposed conversion and kind of limiting it to what is being proposed tonight. And the applicant has willingly decided to take conditions that I'll discuss in a moment regarding leaving the structure as is, sort of in perpetuity. But before I get to that, I really think it's important that we discuss kind of the zoning perspective we have to deal with tonight. So this is an overview of East Gloucester. These orange lots are the 3 lots that we're talking about. And if I throw the zoning overlay on, the darker orange color is R10 and the lighter yellow color is R20. And as you can see all along Mount Pleasant, the spine here, everything is R10, everything to the water is R10. And then everything 1 or 2 properties back on this side are R10 also. And then when you get into the more rural part of East Gloucester, this is where the pines are located. This is where you're heading toward the golf course if you get off the map. It goes to R20, which is medium low density instead of medium high density, which is R10. And these 3 lots we're talking about, despite the fact that they're at the end of Lantern Lane and clearly hooked up with these properties toward Mount Pleasant, because they were more than 2 parcels back, got swept into the R20 zone. If I zoom in, you can see even more clearly how this neighborhood looks. Just keep zooming in, where this line is. I think it's important to note that this is the only property on Lantern Lane zoned R20. And it's the nearest R20 properties don't conform themselves. You can see around here, there are some other R20 properties that got, nabbed by the zoning line because they're more than 2 properties back, and they're not R20 lots either. Just kind of an unfortunate way in which the line was drawn. And I don't begrudge the planning department when you're drawing lines across the city. It's hard to get a magnifying glass out and make sure you nail it every single time. But the reason I bring that up is because I'm looking to create a new lot essentially that's non-conforming. And as I mentioned, it sounds like there's a lot of relief. And so if you look at the top table, the lot 1 we're creating is really deficient on front yard setback. We need over 20 feet of relief to keep the house where it is. If this was an R10 lot, we'd be down to 12.7. We're almost halfway to the required setback for an R10, but we're way off from an R20. Lot 2, it's even more important. We have 5 variances we need under R20. If this was an R10 lot, aside from the frontage issue that we have because it's the very end of that layout of Lantern Lane, this is otherwise a conforming lot with a conforming structure if it were R10. Now, I want to be clear, it's not R10, it is R20, and we do need all of these variances. But I want to again put it into perspective that we're not trying to create, some ridiculously small postage stamp or something totally out of place in the neighborhood. The other point I want to make is that even in the R20 zoning district, you only need 10,000 square feet per dwelling unit. Now you need 20,000 square feet per lot, which we can't hit, but you need 10,000 per dwelling unit, and we can hit that. Lot 1 has twice the required amount, and lot 2 is over the amount also. So this certainly is not cramming in too many units. This is not too dense of development. This is, what the zoning ordinance calls for as far as density, even in the R20 district. You get down to the R10, it's only 2,000 square feet per dwelling unit. That's not what we're trying to accomplish here. If you look at what I'm considering the neighborhood, so you go from Nautical Heights, looped around to Marble Road and Lantern Lanes in the middle, you look at all these properties, and again, as we looked previously, some are R10 and some are R20. The lots we're proposing are going to be the third most and the eighth most large, the third most large and the eighth most large lot in this entire neighborhood. Of these 25 properties that I kind of tried to group together, less than half have more than 10,000 square feet of lot area, period. And only 3, including the one we're trying to create, are up over 20. And some of these lots are R10 lots. They don't need 20. So I'm not trying to make that argument. I'm just trying to show that, if you allow this reconfiguration of the lots we have currently into lots 1 and 2 as proposed, there's still some of the biggest lots in the neighborhood. And again, we'll both just have a single family on them. There's also neighborhood support. My client was proactive and reached out to the directed butters. We've received no opposition. I certainly hope there's none tonight because we tried our best to make sure we talked to everybody beforehand. And when we spoke to the Marble Road residents, the back here, there's some, this is the back property line. Here's the garage. We have some neighbors over on Marble Road whose backyards would be the closest to the garage if it became. And so in speaking to them, they wanted 3 conditions on the decision if we're, fortunate enough to get one. And my client agreed. And those 3 are: 1, no future expansion to height or footprint. And now, of course, legally, they couldn't do that without coming back to the ZBA anyway. But as you know, the casting characters of the ZBA rotates. Institutional knowledge sometimes goes away. So this would be written right into the decision so that if, a future owner tried to come back and get around this, when your, successors on this board pull up the old decision, you'll see right in there that this was only even ever turned into a house based on the representation. It was not getting any bigger. And that'll, really give the neighbors protection against any future board, we think, granting relief that was not intended in this moment. My client has also agreed to erect a stockade fence and or dense vegetation at that southwestern boundary line to really give some privacy. The people in the backyard don't want to be looking into this house, and the people in the house, I'm sure, do not want the people in the backyard looking in either. And then we're also proposing this language down the back to, really just acknowledge that these backyards were here first. The use, and this is a great little East Gloucester neighborhood. Some great families are located out there on Marble Road. I've been fortunate enough to be at some outdoor cookouts in some of these backyards. And so this little quote here that says, we want to acknowledge that the backyards are used for recreation, home crafts, raising animals, etc., and the ability of these abutters to continue enjoying their property shall not be impacted by the presence of a dwelling unit in the garage. And again, this is more about, 5-10 years down the road, if suddenly, for some reason, John has sold this property and there's a new owner, we don't want that new owner to be complaining about Jason Gross chicken coop. That chicken coop was there long before this was ever going to be a house. And we just don't want the neighbors to be at any risk that some future owner would be a jerk, basically. And this way they'd be able to say, hey, listen, the only reason your garage got turned into the house you live in now was because your previous owner expressly acknowledged that you abut some backyards and we intend to use them recreationally. And so with those 3 conditions that my client would be willing to accept, we're able to get the neighbors over on Marble Road on board. So that's all well and good, but obviously we have to get to the variance standard because we are asking for variances. And this is the 3 parts, which you all know. And so, as far as literal enforcement creating a hardship, there's a hardship in that this woman owns over 30,000 square feet of buildable land area out in East Gloucester. And there's no real way for her to actually take advantage of developing that to the density that the zoning ordinance suggests is appropriate. Even her single family house, she couldn't even convert that to a 2-family without needing variances because it's an old home and it's too close to the street. So she's basically stuck with this single family despite having all this land area, or she needs a variance to, better develop it. And okay, well, is this hardship caused by the shape of the structure, shape of the land? And you go, well, yeah, the variances for the existing structure because the structure is where it is and we're not going to move it. Same thing with the garage. We're not looking to move or create change in the neighborhood unnecessarily. And then the shape of the 3 separate lots is pretty unproductive. And even though we can change those lot lines because they're in common ownership, even after the most sensible reconfiguration, which I think is what we've proposed, it's still not quite perfect. And so then okay, well, is this relief going to harm the public good or nullify the intent of the zoning ordinance? And I think quite the contrary. This is, again, not too dense of a development. This is not cramming in unnecessary units in an overly jam-packed neighborhood. Again, public good and neighborly relations. They've worked out conditions with the neighbors to receive their support. And as you know, the housing production plan has demonstrated that Gloucester is in serious need of additional housing units. And this allows a new housing unit in East Gloucester to be created. It also allows a young family to move into East Gloucester. I can tell you as a member of the school committee that right now, the East Gloucester school, there are fewer than 80 students at that school that actually live in East Gloucester because frankly, young families can't afford to live in East Gloucester. And that this would provide a young family the opportunity to, be raised on the same property, that their father was raised on, I think is a really unique kind of gem that is, I guess, the cherry on the sundae here. And so I think I've spoken enough for now. I want to thank you all. I will end my screen share and take any questions if you have any.
Any board questions at this moment?
No.
Okay, we'll take testimony by the public. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the application? Anyone in favor, please raise your hand. Jason Grow is the first one up. We'll bring Jason in.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Hello, we can hear you. Name and address for the record, please.
Jason Grow, 12 Marble Road. Also with Sarah Grow here, also at 12 Marble Road. We'd like to speak in favor of this application on a couple of points. One, the Castellucci's have been great neighbors for the last 21 years that we've been here. We've gotten along very well. It's always been a very cordial relationship. We are eager to see, as Attorney Favaz has pointed out, the creation of housing that allows young families to come into East Gloucester. He rightfully points out that it's getting harder and harder for families to find places to buy into it at that initial level. And this does that in a way that also preserves the sense of the family structure that he's grown up around, and we endorse that. We did have concerns, and I want to thank Joel for being proactive about the preservation of my chickens and bees. The biggest issue we had was the issue of privacy, and that as the garage is there right now, there's no real direct involvement between the two properties. And our concern was that if it becomes a house, then we've got neighbors that are just right off of our fence. And to be honest with you, it's actually in a lot of ways more impactful on them because we tend to overlook their property. But they have addressed those concerns to our satisfaction. And I think our ongoing good relationship and the fact that we'll be able to have new neighbors in is a good thing, and we support the project. So we want to thank the Castellucci's and Joel for recognizing the concerns of the neighborhood and responding to them in a proactive way.
Thank you both. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the application, please raise your hand. I see none. I'll ask for anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application. Please raise your hand. Anyone in opposition? And again, if you're on your phone, it's *9. I see no hands up. There'll be no need for rebuttal. Discussion by the board, or are we, any concerns? Or are we ready to go to a motion?
I have no concerns. I'm ready when you guys are.
No, I think the, conditions that were laid out by Joel to answer all the neighbors' concerns also answered mine, so I'm ready to vote.
Okay, Adria, motion?
All righty. In the matter of a petition of Deborah Castellucci seeking variances for front yard, side yard, rear yard, lot area, and lot frontage to allow the combination of 3 lots into 2 new lots with the existing single-family dwelling on one lot and conversion of the existing garage into a dwelling on the other lot at 7, 8, and 8R Lantern Lane. I would move approval for all of the relief requested. I do think that the applicants I do think the applicants have a hardship in this situation. I think it was very helpful, Joel, for you to point out the R10, R20 distinctions. It's pretty clear that those lots in that area are really R10 and not R20. And so I do think the distinction of the zoning districts does create a hardship for the applicant. They have 3 lots. They can't really utilize them. They can't really build on them and keep them as 3 lots. So I think this seems to be a good solution. Also furthering the hardship, the structures are where they are. And they're not looking to move them. And so they've come up with a plan that keeps them where they are as kind of a workaround. So I do think that they meet that criteria. I also do think the variances can be granted without substantial, I just lost my train of thought. Substantial harm,
Detriment.
sorry, to the public. Good. It's very clear that the neighbors are on board. I commend the applicants and Joel for being proactive about it, for reaching out, for working with the neighbors to come up with a plan that works for everybody. And I love the idea that we're bringing back someone who grew up in Gloucester and is now going to raise his family here. There's certainly a huge need for young families to come back to this city. So for all of those, and this decision would of course be subject to the 3 conditions that Joel had laid out in his presentation. So with that said, I would vote in favor of all of the relief requested.
We have a motion made, seconded by Michael. Before we go to roll call, Greg, do you have the plan with that crossed out stairway on it that we'll be stamping? I don't think you do, and so we'll have to do that on the plan, at least one
Right.
copy that gets stamped.
These say preliminary too, these drawings are stamped in red that say preliminary.
Site plan says preliminary because it's an A&R plan that'll get submitted to the planning board once approved.
But on the plan for the home, we just got to put a big X on that stairway and make that the stamped copy. Roll call vote.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes, in favor of all the reliefs and the 3 conditions.
Ms. Schlichty,
Yes, nice presentation, Joel. It was very helpful to show how it really is in keeping with the neighborhood, what you're doing.
Mr. Nyman,
Yeah, ditto for me. I thought it was a very good presentation. I'm in favor of all the relief requested and the conditions.
Ms. Pratt,
Yes, great presentation, great project. Yeah.
Mr. Parisi,
I also vote yes. Joel, you've heard our decisions, favorable. Greg, you told you what we're going to do with those plans as far as stamping and marking them up. And Attorney Favazza, if you do a draft, we'd greatly appreciate that. Speed things up.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah,
good luck.
last hearing of the night is the petition of Michael Allen, seeking a special permit under 1.9 to alter and expand a non-conforming structure and side yard variance to allow construction of 2 new rear egress decks at 18 Taylor Street. I believe Robert Gula, the architect, is representing.
Mr. Gullah wasn't available tonight. He asked me to tag, so I'm going to take care of this.
Okay,
For the record again, my name is Joel Fabaza. I'm an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street in Gloucester. I'm here on behalf of Michael Allen, the owner. He's been brought in also. Mike, you might want to mute your mic because I see your icon's gone down. Mike acquired this property from a foreclosed lender back in March of 2020, and the property was in rough shape. I'm going to really quickly just flip through and show you what this property looked like in January of 2020. And it's important because one of the findings you need to make is that what Mike has not been substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than what existed. And so I'll just flip through. As you can see, this is the exterior is in rough shape. This was sitting in the neighborhood. The interior was even worse. A lot of issues. I want to point out especially, and hopefully you can see my mouse, look at the existing condition plans, those are doorways to the exterior coming through the bathrooms. That was the secondary means of egress that you had in this property as it was previously configured. You have the ceiling falling down, et cetera, right? So this property was in rough shape. Mike picked it up and tried to do right by the neighborhood and fix it up. And at the top, I also want to make clear that this was not something where someone was trying to, sneak something through and got busted. The owner and their contractor applied for a building permit. When things changed as they continued the work, they updated the plans. And at the end, as I'm showing you here, an occupancy permit was issued for the structure as it's currently configured. And what I'm actually going to go through is the opposition letter that's in your file, because it lays out the timeline. And so this is the original set of drawings that was submitted. It was just hand drawn by the applicant's contractor. And then they got Robert Gullah involved. He did a better set of drawings. Again, here's the existing conditions with the old exterior door through the bathroom. There's that pipe you saw. And the original plan for the decks was to reconfigure the bathrooms so that you no longer walk through the bathrooms to get outside. And instead of having the two doors centered on the back of the house, they were being pushed out to the wings, and the two staircases were going to point down at each other. And as construction went on, they realized that because they're bringing central air into the property, the condensers needed to go somewhere, and the condensers weren't going to fit. You basically would be walking down these staircases into the condensers. So they submitted a quick revised plan to the building department in June of 2020. This was accepted by the building department. I will note there's a typo. This should say 3.5 instead of 7.2. 7.2 is the new deck. The old one was 3.5 as shown on the previous hand-drawn plan and the previous architectural plan. But nevertheless, the sketch was submitted back in June, and then these decks were constructed in accordance with these sketches. Here are some pictures that the neighbor provided. As you can see, these are the old doors that were centered up on the bathrooms. There's that pipe that was heading down through one of them. And you can kind of see an old shot of what the deck looked like over her fence. And then again, these are pictures taken by the neighbor. I'm just kind of borrowing them. We just kind of hopped on this week. This is a shot where you can see the two new decks. And that's the one that's bumped out because the compressors are sitting in this area here. So absolutely, this deck, these steps in this portion of the deck are definitely closer to the property line than this set of stairs and than the old one was. However, I want to make clear that if you go back and you do the math, because Robert Gullah has provided a new set of plans, let's see if I can grab those. Well, I can just do this one. Basically, the old stairs at 3.5 feet, we're going to do a little bit of math here, right? The old stairs at 3.5 feet meant they were 3.7 feet off the property line. The new deck, according to Robert Gullah, is this is 7'2" in this plan. Robert's measured it at just 7 feet wide, which means that it's just 0.2 feet off the property line. There's obviously a fence that's a little pushed back, but there's, this is not to scale. This deck is coming to within a few inches of the property line. No one's trying to hide that. Again, the plans that Rob prepared show that. I just don't have it up right now. I don't think, if you need me to grab them, I can grab them. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing up all this math is the original deck at 3.5 feet, which is 3.7 feet off the property line. It gets a 3-foot credit, right? Because when you're talking about unenclosed decks, you get a 3-foot credit toward your setback. So you add that, and the old deck was, 6.7 with air quotes feet off the property line. It doesn't really matter because the rear setback, even in the R5 district, is 20 feet. And the house isn't even 20 feet. So this is just a pre-existing non-conforming structure. Rob Gullah submitted an application, or perhaps the homeowner submitted the application for the ZBA that was requesting variances. Now that I've had a chance to look at this, we do not need variances because this was a pre-existing non-conformity. It's been expanded into, but this is a 2-family house. And so under recent case law, as you're very well aware, you don't need a variance because you're not creating a new nonconformity. So the only threshold we have here is just the second part of that test, which is the new deck substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than what formerly existed? It's usually presently existed because usually you do this up front. But again, this went through the full building permit process, got a certificate of occupancy, and then got sent back to the ZBA. So is what's there now substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than what was there? And I remind you of what was there as far as the entire package here. Now, obviously, there's one neighbor who is very concerned and is, the most likely of anybody to be impacted, even by a small deck like this. And so I want to state at the beginning that, not the beginning, but I want to say at a conclusion, actually, that in speaking to the owner, he's willing to take two conditions in order to get the special permit relative to that one deck. He's willing to take a condition that there be no patio furniture put on that deck, and he's willing to take a condition that no grills be put on that deck. Basically, making sure this deck is used for egress and not for hanging out, not for socializing, not for any of the concerns that I think the neighbor behind the fence is going to have. And at that point, to me, it doesn't really matter whether these stairs are 7 feet out or 3.5 feet out, because if these stairs weren't here, this would just be backyard where someone could still be standing, behind the fence doing what they please. Now they'll be walking up and walking in. So I don't think that it's a huge issue as to privacy, as long as there's restrictions to prevent, prolonged use of the deck outdoors. And again, even if there is some impact to the immediate neighbor, it's certainly not a substantial detriment to the entire neighborhood as compared to the deck that was there and the house that was there beforehand. I'll stop my screen share at that and ask you to give me questions. I'm happy to help.
Thank you. Any questions by the board? Seeing none, we'll take testimony. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the application, please raise your hand. Anyone in favor? Dawn, can we bring Dawn in? Remind everybody, please give your name and address for the record to begin.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Donald Hayes. My address is 21 Rockport Road in Gloucester. I just want to speak that I'm familiar with this project from the time that Mr. Allen bought it until its completion. It was a huge eyesore in the neighborhood, and it got new siding, new windows, new roof, all new kitchens, all new bathrooms. They really did a nice, job. And the Gloucester's in a housing shortage, and both units, I believe, were rented out to lower income, which I think is a credit to Mr. Allen. And he's asked my advice on, the back decks and the different problems. And to call these things a back deck is really, they're stoops and they're fire egresses. And I think that the concession to, not have it be a hangout point or, a social area, I think, should address most of the concern from the one neighbor. And it wasn't in the proposal, but, maybe a higher fence if there is something, to find some middle ground with the one neighbor. But I think the neighborhood has been improved, by the beautification of the house. And I think that the complaints that are brought before the board are not of a building one. I think they're more of a personal one, in my opinion. And I think that I think the board should look at this logically and say that, a two-family house needs a second egress. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Please raise your hand. Anyone in opposition? I see Lisa Rigsby.
Hi. I am the neighbor directly abutting the documents that Joel
Could we get
showed
the
for
name
the
and
one.
address, please, to start?
Lisa Rigsby, 3 Taylor Court.
Thank you.
I'm the neighbor abutting, and the documents that Joel used. I actually had a correction too, so I would like to share my screen if possible.
Can we do that? Yeah, I think so.
Just a little bit of background. I don't know if you're familiar with the area of Taylor Court. Our houses are old. We're pre-existing non-conforming structures, and the house was dilapidated that Mr. Allen purchased. And I think that anybody, myself included, are in agreement that it definitely improves the neighborhood. That is not what is in question here. What we're talking about is the rear egress and back deck. So I'm just going to show my screen. Let's see. I don't see the control to show my screen.
Touch down the bottom, you'll get that green arrow.
I don't have the green arrow.
It should say share screen with a green arrow. The whole thing's in green.
There's no green arrow.
Are you getting all the bottom Q&As and the raise hand thing and all that?
Yep. It says
And-
mute, raise hand, Q&A, or leave.
I don't know what version of Zoom you have.
Well, I Zoom regularly for business, but let's see if I can try a different way.
So we have the site plan and the first floor plan. Are you saying there's something wrong on there?
In her opposition, we have.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you look at your document, I'll just speak to it
Sure.
in the essence of time. So the very first document that was uploaded or submitted was were hand-drawn dimensions showing the deck in back as 3.5 feet by 14 feet.
Mhm.
That included the 2 egresses.
So just to help, the drawing that we're going to approve or not approve based on is this site plan A1, proposed renovation Allen residence. The left side shows Taylor Court and the new decks. And the right side shows the first floor plan. Is there
Well-
anything wrong with that drawing?
I'm not sure which page you're referring to. I would just like to go through the timeline. This is my first time.
That one right there, yeah,
Yes.
that's the one we're talking about. The one that's up on the screen? Yep. Are you seeing that?
Yes, I am seeing that, but
Okay.
I don't know when that was submitted to the permit
It's been in
file.
our packet from day one. So it was with the
No, that's not,
application.
well, that actually is not what is submitted for public view with the building permit with the files online.
The application for the for the special permit?
I've never seen that before.
Well,
But actually, Chairman, I would like to go through the timeline, if that's possible, with the documents that I submitted, and then we can talk about that because that is not in the file online. And I've never seen that before. So if it's just,
So
I'd
what-
like to just go through the
I
process.
understand what you're saying, but I'm trying to clarify things for you. For one, you submitted some documents that we may not all have printed out on our desks here because we're basing our decision on this drawing that has been with the initial application and part of this file online on the website, on the drive, since the application was submitted.
Right, but the application was submitted after the fact. We're
After the
talking
fact,
about
so-
an after the fact situation here.
Right.
the deck was built and completed, it was completed January 15th.
We understand that.
What is the date of the submission of this plan?
3/1.
Right. So we're talking about something that's after the fact. So Chairman, with all due respect, I'd just like to go through the timeline to put this
Okay.
into perspective.
You're welcome to, but you need to share us that information. Like I said, because
Well, Joel actually,
we don't know what document you're talking about.
I'm trying to share it, but Joel actually used my own documentation.
Greg, you
So
just.
maybe Joel, yeah. So if you have it, I did submit it, if you have it available to you in lieu of sharing my screen, which for some reason I'm not able to do.
I have a truncated version, Mr. Chair. If you would like, I can put up.
If you're
version.
welcome to put it up if you can.
Thank you, Joel. So this is the original dimensions, the original footprint that shows the 3.5 by 14 feet, including stairs, back deck, which also served as the second egress for both units.
Correct.
That was on April 8th. On April 27th, a revision was submitted, or the existing plan was submitted. And I know Rob Gullah, and so it's to scale. It exactly shows that it was 3.5 feet by 14 feet. On May 19th, that's the one, thank you. Rob submitted a plan that showed that the deck was split and stairs facing each other. On June 1st, which is the next, I didn't even know that was Rob's plan because it doesn't look like it and it's not signed, but it shows the plan for the reconfigured steps and extending the deck to the full width of the building. Then the next file, so this is where a correction is needed. That file was not submitted on June 1st, 2020. That's my error. It was January 13th. It was uploaded by Kathy Langley. Again, that doesn't strike me as a Rob Gullah plan because I know him and submitting something like that doesn't seem like his style. But it was submitted after the work had already started. So what that says is that the owner, Mr. Allen, had made a decision to change the setback and to change the deck, used incorrect dimensions to measure the deck. And Joel, you'll have to excuse me. I don't really understand what you're saying because you threw a lot of math out and it's late and I need to digest this since I'm not an expert in the field. But that deck was built based on incorrect dimensions that show the deck as 7.5 feet by 15 feet, not including stairs. The width of the deck is not in question for me. It's the proximity to my property line. So at that time, when the work was first started, around October 27th, I submitted an email complaint to Bill Sanborn, which you all should have in the paperwork that I submitted or the document that I submitted to Bill Sanborn and Linda Martin with photos of the work that had been started and these new condensing units. That was October 27th. Reminder, that plan was submitted on January 13th.
Of which year? 21?
January 13th of 2021, that plan
Okay,
was
thank you.
submitted. So I reached out on October 27th. I submitted an email complaint to Bill Sanborn. I did not get a response. I resent it on 11/4. And I was advised on to submit an official complaint with for inspection, which I did on 11/7. Additionally, Mr. Sanborn responded saying that there were no regulations governing condensing units, which were allowed as they were testing them. And said that he would reach out to the health department regarding the noise, which I never heard anything from. On 11/18, Mr. Butler was assigned to the case on 11/4. He investigated it. And on 11, let's see, let me just look on my screen here, just so I have the document in front of me. Please bear with me. So on 11, let me roll back. On 11/4, Mr. Butler was assigned as the inspector to investigate the matter. I submitted an official complaint form shortly thereafter on 11/7 with imagery showing that the work had already been started.
So
On 11/18, more work was being done to the deck. I contacted Mr. Butler and asked if he had had a chance to inspect it and what his findings were. And he responded by saying that he had talked to the contractor and told him that he needed to go to the zoning board for the decks. That's 11/18 of 2020.
Yep. And here we are.
And 12/19, I hadn't heard anything. I asked for an update to Mr. Butler. And at that time, the contractor had already paved the driveway and paths to the decks that were semi-complete, making an assumption that obviously if you're paving, it's not easy to rip up, that this was a done deal. On 12/21/20, Mr. Butler replied that he is going to the Zoning Board of Appeals to seek relief. On 1/18, I reached out to say that I was dismayed to see that the deck had been completed. It was completed on 1/15/2021. And I question why the owner was allowed to continue the work despite I was an active participant in reaching out, questioning, wondering why this was allowed to happen along the way. It wasn't like I just sat back and said, oh, this is intrusive. This affects my privacy. The quality of the overall property, nobody can question. The house was on the Federal Register crystal meth lab. It definitely is improved, but at the expense of my privacy, security. You can climb onto my deck from on my roof from their deck. It's a safety issue. Yes, no grills on the deck, but that grill is now against the fence, which is, you know, against my property line. There are tiki torches on that. I don't have confidence that tenants are going to follow the rules. And frankly, I don't want to be, you know, calling out tenants for things that they shouldn't be doing. So my point is that a certificate of rental dwelling was issued on the 4th of March. So the plan that you showed me, Chairman, was submitted with the request for special permit and variance on, could you remind me the date?
It was all stamped April 8th.
So isn't this all after the fact?
Yes.
It's not this owner's first trip around the block. And
Excuse me, ma'am.
sorry,
What I
sir.
was trying to explain to you, nobody's in dispute that this was done before. But what's before us tonight as a zoning board, we don't manage the building department. We don't manage who issued an occupancy permit. What's before us is an application to approve these stairway and decks as submitted in the drawing. And that's what was before the board tonight. Now, you've stated we didn't need to go through the whole thing because it's irrelevant, but you did state your feelings about the safety and about the intrusion and about the detrimental to the neighborhood, which is your right to do, and we will take that into account. That was what I was trying to slow you down a little there, because we all know, and the applicant's not denying that they built this. He did it at his own risk, because if we vote no tonight, guess what? He has to take it down. There's no done deal. I don't care if there was a gold driveway, he would have to dig it up if we turned it down. Okay? So there's no done deals when you come before the zoning board.
Thank you, sir.
You're
I would
very
just,
welcome.
I would like
Lisa,
to, oh, yeah.
Ms. Rigsby, let me, this is Michael Nyman from zoning board. Let me just chime in for a second and basically say, I appreciate the timeline that you've laid out, because what matters to me is sort of intent. There's a presumption here on the part of this owner to move forward. I would say a little recklessly, actually. So, but there's a presumption that we're going to say yes for this deck. So we might say yes for it. But the fact that you were regularly complaining, regularly submitting, regularly expressing your concerns, at least for this zoning board member, is I've heard it. So.
Thank you, sir. I just want to note that the new deck of Unit 20 is 28 inches from my property line, 28 inches. It went from 3.5 feet to 28 inches. We're not talking about, a small amount here. And in terms of listening to the kinds of properties that other people have spoken about, I'm R5 zone. Everything's tight here. And from your own, experience in dealing with the issues that come up in the zone, it is very tight, and we have to respect each other's privacy and quality of life, as well as the security. And I believe that this is in complete violation of that. Overall, is it better for the neighborhood? Absolutely, but it's not better for me. I didn't buy this house with that kind of 28 inches from my property line deck. And frankly, if I were looking at this house today, I would not buy it. To me, that presents a potential hardship if I try to sell it.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Please raise your hand. Anyone in opposition? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll ask for rebuttal by Attorney Favazza.
Thank you. Just to, address the issue of the timeline and Mr. Nyman's statements and the chair's statements about proceeding at their own risk. Again, even based on the timeline established by Ms. Rigsby, clearly the building department and the contractor were in communication about this. At no point after this deck was completed, even according to, Ms. Rigsby's timeline, did a stop work order get issued for a violation. It did not stop the building department from issuing a certificate of occupancy. So clearly, although I wasn't there for the conversations, and neither were you or anybody else, if there was this much conversation about this property and this much notification to the building department seems to have not had that big of an issue because they never stopped the project. They never upheld, or withheld an occupancy permit saying, hey, listen, you got to clear that deck issue up before we can sign off on this. The neighbors raised an issue, right? So the degree with which someone was being reckless, I would argue that, in fact, it was obvious that they were being signaled by the department that this was good to go. Nevertheless, that doesn't necessarily matter. I think one thing that's getting lost here is Ms. Rigsby is trying to bifurcate these decks from this project. And if they had known at the beginning that they weren't going to be able to locate HVAC units, which maybe they should have, but they didn't. They known at the beginning that they were going to have to configure these decks as shown on the 4/8/21 plan. And they'd come before you and said, hey, listen, look at this house. I'm going to redo this house. And the only bit of relief I need is a special permit to bump these back stairs out another 3 feet so I can get around the condensers. I don't think that this board, would have blinked. They would have said, this is great. You're taking a house that's on the Federal Registry of Meth Labs and rehabbing the whole thing. Thank you. Because this deck, is the small sticking point, it doesn't mean you get a discount if we're doing this after the fact. You don't get to discount all the other work that was also done. This is all part of the project, and the project cannot be completed without a second means of egress, and the second means of egress requires getting out around these compressors. Again, as far as the thing about grills, we're trying our best here. If this deck was tucked up against the house like the old deck was, that grill would still be down in the yard up against that fence. I don't know where else you'd put a grill back here. To use Ms. Rigsby's own words, as she acknowledged, these are old homes and everything's tight in the R5 district. But the most important thing, because again, you're making a legal determination here, is that it is well established by this zoning board, and it is well established by case law in the Commonwealth that one neighbor does not a neighborhood make. And Ms. Rigsby even admitted that this is overall better for the neighborhood, just not for her. So even if you want to take everything in her favor, that this 7 foot wide egress deck is somehow, terrible for Ms. Rigsby, which I do not believe it really is. Even if it was, that still does not meet the standard, the legal standard you'd have to find that this is substantially detrimental to the neighborhood, because even Ms. Rigsby admits this is better for the neighborhood than what was there. It's just not great for her in her personal opinion. And so if that is the argument being made by the opposition, she's in fact made the argument for the owner and that she is the only one impacted. Again, I don't agree with her degree of impact, but even if you believed everything she said and agreed with her fully, you still don't have the legal standing to make that finding because it's not what, again, this zoning board has ruled previously. It's not what case law has ruled previously. One neighbor is not a neighborhood. And the substantial detriment to the neighborhood is the standard. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion by the board. Adria?
Go ahead, Adrian.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Catherine.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So I like Michael, I see the intent the intent of the applicant is upsetting to me. They clearly knew that they needed to go before the zoning board. They didn't. They went ahead and finished the project anyway. It's neither here nor there, but I'm upset for Ms. Rigsby that this happened the way it happened, that the building department wasn't more involved or issued a stop work order or whatever, but here we are. I'm wondering, how tall is that fence that's right there? Can it be increased to somehow block the deck from the proximity of her roof? That seems to be a concern, the safety issue for her. The fact that the grill's now, in the yard as it probably was before, you can't really control what people are doing in their yard. So, you know, and I do think that the applicant's concession about, you know, only using that deck as an egress, I think that's great, but clearly not enough. I don't know, this is a tough one for me. I am disappointed the way that this happened. But, you know, it is a good, I mean, it was a good project. It certainly, you know, it is beneficial to the neighborhood. I think it certainly increased the value of that house. It made it, you know, it's not on the federal meth lab listing, which I didn't even know was a thing, but so there's obviously a lot of pros to this. So I don't know, I guess I'd like to hear more from our board members as to where people are leaning.
Catherine, did you want to?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, a lot of times we get petitions for relief after things have been built. People misplace the foundation, somebody, you know, didn't realize or didn't come to get it. I always look at these applications that if it came before me, not built, would I approve this application? I mean, would I not, you know, I'm taking this as it has not happened yet. Would I still approve this? And I think you have to look at the total project and say, you know, is this a good thing for the neighborhood? All in all, yes, it is a good thing for the neighborhood. Does Ms. Rigsby have legitimate concerns? Yes, I do think she has legitimate concerns. Has the applicant tried to address those? Yes, they're not gonna, nothing can be on that deck. It's not to be used for, you know, socializing. And, you know, if we could address the issue, which she has, of people now being able to step from her deck onto her roof, I would vote in favor of doing it, because all in all, I think it is a good project for the neighborhood. And, you know, I think that the applicant, they need a rear egress. I think, you know, HVAC is, you know, most people anticipate it now in a newly renovated house. I don't think that's unreasonable. So I think that, yes, this is closer to a fence, but can you put some screening on that one rail there so people can't step from that deck onto her roof? Or, I mean, I think if we can address that one issue, I'd be voting in favor.
Am I allowed to speak?
No.
No.
So one thing I would say that this deck, the closest one, the deeper one, is only, it's like 3.5 feet wide. It's not like you're gonna put a table out there. You couldn't get by, you know? Well, you might put one single chair out there to go sit for a little while, but I think that's everybody's inalienable right. You certainly aren't gonna have a grill out there, because then you wouldn't be able to go down the stairs. So the grill's gonna be in the yard. You don't want it right next to the house. We've had enough of those crazy fires in town. And I will say, I agree with Catherine that I learned from Michael. We can't worry about the, you know, you said that before, Mike. Would I approve it now? You know? And so I think you need to, even though it came late, hey, I've said it many times, we ought to make somebody tear something down. But maybe this isn't the one. And because if this came to us in the beginning, it makes a lot of sense with the compressors. You got to get down by them, so you bump it out a few feet. We can do some conditions, you know. I didn't think it was, I mean, I don't think anybody living in there now is going to be jumping. Maybe in the old methadone or lab, they might have ran that way and jumped over the fence to get away, but I don't know. I just don't see that as happening. But so I think I would have supported it if it was here before us new. So I'm not really looking to penalize anyone because they came late. So any other thoughts?
I think for me, and maybe it's just me, my sort of background in building and so on, I probably would have been, if I had heard this much opposition from Ms. Rigsby, I probably would have done a better site visit. I probably would have interacted more about, was there any way to reconfigure that back a tiny bit, you know, with those compressors and things like that. I probably would have, in my own mind,
100%, Michael.
I would have pressed in on the front end and made sure, was this the only way that it was going to work? Or was it just the easiest way? Or was it just the way that was initially thought, but there was a better way? That's all. That would have gained some relief for Ms. Rigsby instead of just for the applicant. So I think that's my complaint specifically about this one. Not all of them. There have been others that have come before us. We made one guy cut his deck back because we thought it was too wide. Other ones we've said yes. We would have said yes in the beginning, so we're going to say yes now. We're not just going to punish them. We'll let Bill find them more if that's how it works. This one's just a little bit different for me because I'm not convinced that this was the only way to do it. That's all. So
I'm gonna have to agree with you, Michael, because I know as a builder, anytime I have to pull a permit or do a project, it's my responsibility to ensure that I follow all the codes. And if I try to take shortcuts, I say, well, we'll put this one under the rug, we'll sweep it under there, and then it turns around and bites me in the butt. Shame on me. But this situation looks like, do the crime and ask for forgiveness, and that's kind of what I'm seeing on this matter. Not all of them, but like you mentioned, I think there was a petition not long ago where two neighbors were battling back and forth on the sides of the stairs, and they had to keep cutting back, even though there was complaints prior to the building of these stacks of stairs. So I think this looks like, a reoccurring issue at times. And, I feel from this situation because of those related matters. So maybe, like you said, if it came before us, before it was built, and we could have done a little bit more homework on it, maybe I would have had a different outlook on it. But as of right now, based on the situation and how it was handled, and knowing if I was the builder to that property or the owner, and I said, hey, this is what I want to do, it's going to be my responsibility to ensure that I follow the proper protocols and codes, not just because, well, this is what I want to do and hopefully nobody complains about it, because I don't ever get that leeway anytime I pull a permit. So in my opinion, I don't feel that she was represented, or taken as seriously as she should have been. And maybe that could have, they could have mitigated this problem long before it was built. And now here we are. So that's all I got to say about that. Yeah.
Anyone else? Will require a motion, positive motion.
Okay. In the matter of a petition of Michael Allen seeking a special permit under section 1.9 of the Gloucester zoning ordinance to alter and expand non-conforming structure to allow for the construction of 2 new rear egress decks at 18 Taylor Street. I would make the motion that it is an increase in the nonconformity, although it's not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood as a whole. So I would make a motion in favor of the special permit.
Second.
Motion made and seconded in favor of the special permit. Before we vote, I have a question. So if this vote went negative and wasn't approved, what's the remedy? How does it become compliant? Or they have to come back before? I mean, they can't repetitive application, right? It would have to be substantially changed for us to allow a repetitive application. So how does this home continue to be occupied tomorrow? Would just pulling that one stair back to the building, the same as the one on the left, and then they'd have to move their compressors under the stairs or something? I mean, I think we need a remedy, or I'd like to know what the effect of it's going to be.
Yeah, I agree, Joe.
Well, I think what I don't like, Joe, is that I have to come up with a remedy. I mean, that's not a criticism of you. That wasn't the point of me saying that. I think I don't really like being in the situation that we're in, but it's the one that we're in. So
If they could they not go back to the same width as that other deck and connect that deck across? So it'll be one connecting deck and, you know, the egress will still be there. So, you know, they can both use the same, it'd be the same deck, but narrow, the same width as a.
No, I agree, Peter, but I agree with Michael. It's not our job to fix it.
Sure,
I'm just
sure.
curious, can they do that and go before Greg and not come back to us ever, even after we turned it down? Because they would then be back to the old setback. I don't know that they would even have to come before us.
Right.
If that's the
So
remedy,
so I have a question, and maybe this is sort of stretching it too much. Maybe everybody's ready to vote, and if you are, I'll vote too. I wouldn't mind going back out actually and taking a quick look at the back, and sort of determining in my own mind if I'm going to be a hard nose here or not.
Michael,
So I think if we could continue it even just for 2 weeks, it wouldn't. I don't think we have to have a lot of conversation the next time we get back together or anything like that. I think I just wouldn't mind seeing it one more time.
I completely agree with Michael. I don't want to be a hard nose and I don't want to make them, spend the money to redo this, but if there's another way that this can be configured, I'd like to take a look at least. And now that, we know all of these issues, I don't know. I just feel in a very, very tough spot and really am not sure how I would vote on this matter.
okay. Before we'll make a motion on that, I'd like to go back to Attorney Favaza and just ask, does he think we could come up with some modification that would possibly satisfy people?
If you want to give us 2 weeks, you want to take another peek, I can work with the client, work with him, and hopefully work with the neighbor and see if there's something we can come up with that's reasonable, that addresses more of the concerns.
And in the meantime,
I don't know what that is. Maybe it's asking for a higher fence or something, but we can talk.
Say it again, Joe. Say it again.
I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's redoing this deck. I don't know if it's asking for a higher fence. I don't know what the answer might be, but I'm not opposed to at least giving it a shot between now and your next meeting if you're going to take time to go view the site.
Yeah, I'll see it. Yeah.
And we can all visit the site on our own in the meantime, just to get a little more clarity on the distance and stuff. So with that in mind, I would ask Adria to withdraw her motion and issue a new motion to continue for 2 weeks.
Okay. I withdraw my previous motion and I make a motion to continue the petition of Michael Allen to, I think it's May
5/13.
Yes, May 13th.
Motion made, seconded by Michael. Roll call.
Ms. Schlichty,
Yes.
Ms. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Mr. Parisi.
Yes. Okay, it's continued for 2 weeks to May 13th. And in the meantime, each member is encouraged to go out and take a closer look for their satisfaction. And hopefully the applicant may come back with some alternatives. If not, we will, based on our views, we will take a motion on the application at that time. The public hearing is closed. That was official. Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions or anything before we take a motion to adjourn? Catherine made it through the whole meeting. I'm proud of her.
Couple blackouts, but otherwise I'm okay.
All right, we'll have a motion to adjourn.
Okay, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Made and seconded. Roll call vote.
Mr. Canavo,
Yes.
Mr. Nyman,
Yes.
Ms. Pratt,
Yes.
Ms. Schlichty,
Yes.
Mr. Parisi.
Yes. Okay, so I'd encourage everybody to write your congressman, so maybe we can get back in City Hall for June.
I know.
That would be nice. So we can stop doing this. But the meeting is adjourned. Good night, everybody.
All right,
Good
thanks.
night.
Great night,
Have a good
everybody.
one.
You're
Good
good
to see you,
group.
Catherine.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good to be
Good
here.
night.
All right. Take care.